Lopez, Amesbury.
Oh, yeah. Carl.
Good evening. It being on or after 7 o'clock on July 18th, I'm going to open up the Conservation Commission meeting. We have some hearings to discuss this evening, and we have the first one I believe is at 7:15. So we have some other business to address until we get to that point. And do we have some bills to pay?
We have one, and Susan is printing out the rest of them as we speak.
So why don't we, Steve, why don't we discuss the issue that the Fish and Game, the state is concerned with?
So I'm actually not 100% sure the details because I wasn't prepared because Ann was supposed to come and explain this all to you. So I'll just kind of give you a quick overview of what she's looking to do. And
Okay.
when she comes in at the next meeting, we can give a little more detail as far as what they're looking to do. They're applying for a multi-million-dollar grant. As part of the grant, they have to show some amount of land protection that they've been involved in the past couple of years and in the next year. So it's kind of interesting. So they're looking for the commission to sign kind of a document saying that we will not develop a parcel of land that we oversee for 5 years or some period of time. It's kind of double dipping because technically we already have a conservation restriction on all of our open space saying we will never use it for anything other than what it's being used for.
But I guess I'm not understanding. It's already town land. I'm taking it.
It is, but it's not protected under whatever
State
umbrella
guidelines.
the state guidelines have, right? It's got a conservation restriction and all these other, it's owned by the commission, it's managed by the commission, but it doesn't have this extra layer of protection that the state would put on it. So it's pretty much kind of trying to help out Fish and Game. And again, we do work with them once in a while. There is some opportunities for some collaboration. So my plan is to have her come in and answer more detailed questions
Okay.
later.
Do you know what they're trying to do?
It's applying for a grant to get money to go and then protect more land. So Fish and Wildlife has a lot of land around. They look to purchase more land.
And when
I'm
they
not
say
sure of purpose.
protect the land, what does that mean?
Similar to what we do.
So you can't-
Purchase it for, they don't develop.
You can't develop it.
Correct,
But
correct.
could you use it for agriculture or?
I think
for-
typically they don't. There's other organizations that do more farmland protection. I think they're more wildlife habitat, stuff like that. But
So is
again,
there any kind of maintenance or is it
on their lands?
if it's protected, does that mean nature takes its course or if it's open land, it's kept as open land? What does that mean?
I'm not sure their management practices as far as an
Not-
agency.
So if it's protected, it's left alone
It's not
to
developed.
basically revert to woodland?
Yeah, there might be some maintenance as far as they might buy raw land and maintain paths,
They
just like
maintain
we do.
typical trails through them. I mean, not necessarily, they don't designate them as walking trails, but I mean, they usually are access roads through much of their land. Many of them are pre-existing.
Or accesses to water bodies for fishing. They do a lot of fish stocking and stuff.
But if it's open land, that doesn't necessarily mean it'll be kept as open land.
Correct. I don't know how often they purchase land like that. But again, she knows their organization a lot better than I do. I kind of.
So she'll tell us more.
Exactly. I apologize. I really don't know. It's on the agenda. Just want to kind of give you a heads up. So if there are any
Okay, sure.
bigger questions, concerns, I can
That's fine.
work on them in between now and the next meeting. I have more questions than I have answers, just like.
So then they're looking for us to say that
A spec-
they
well, I
can
guess
add
it
this
is-
extra layer of
Is
protection
a
for
specific,
5
a
years.
specific parcel they're looking at?
Right now, we're looking at Driftway Farms because it
Oh, that abuts Fish and Game.
yeah, and it meets
And
their
cranes, right?
exactly.
Mhm.
It meets their requirements. Whatever their requirements are for this land, it meets it.
Well, actually,
I looked at
Driftway, actually, we initially looked to the state to buy that, and they
Correct.
backed out of it.
Where is it?
It's off
Right
of
at the
Wells
end,
Ave.
right at the end of Georgetown, right at the Byfield line on the left,
on North Street.
behind Erie 4.
Oh.
If you go down the end of Wells
Okay.
Ave, there's an old
Okay.
horse property down there.
Right, so they're looking to keep that,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Well,
It's already protected.
We've done that with
Conservation
Essex
restriction and Greenbelt.
County. Greenbelt.
Yeah, Greenbelt is holding a conservation restriction on it. It can never be built on.
Is it privately owned still,
No,
or is it
no.
town land? now?
Conservation Commission manages it, owned by the town. We purchased that 2 years ago
Oh,
with
good.
CPC money. We recently did a conservation restriction on Wheeler Brook. The paperwork hasn't gone
Right,
through yet,
right.
but that got
What happened?
approved. We're working on the paperwork.
The sign was put up down there, correct?
Yes, there's been a
No,
spot.
it's in my office.
Well, we need to get
The
that.
Driftway sign is in my office
Right.
still. I have not installed it. We're looking at other town land, but I'm not really sure. I keep feeding them properties because if they're going to come in and get credit for 32 acres up at Driftway, if we have 100 other acres they can use, I don't know what requirements they have for this parcel, but
Stays like
Driftway
a farm.
fits it perfect, and so far it's the only one that they're really interested in.
Well, but that's
It was-
initially why I tried to get them interested in it, because it abutted their property.
Yeah, it's a reasonable fit.
You know, it abutted a 3,500 acre state parcel.
And it was agricultural land,
Driftway?
apparently, if it's
Yeah,
called a farm.
I think the reason we came up with that title originally was in some of the deeds when we were doing our deed work, it was referenced as Driftway Farms 150 years ago in one of the deeds. It's passed hands 15 times since then. It's pretty much a woodlot right now.
It is, okay.
Again, most of this area was farm at one time. It
Right,
just seemed,
right.
how do you name a property when we're looking to purchase this for the town and we're coming up with a name? And actually Greenbelt came up with it because I thought it had a catchy phrase to it, Driftway Farms, versus,
Right.
whatever, the Conservation Commission giving it a name.
Nice, okay.
Yeah, so it was a nice purchase.
Okay.
So they'll be back in. We have a few more minutes till the next hearing, obviously. The other thing that's going on is we're working on the open space plan. We hired a consultant, and we've been working on that. We're pretty much halfway done with it. I'll be honest with you, I'm holding off till we have a good chunk of it done, most of the issues resolved before I forward it on to you guys, because I don't want the commission to have to read 10 different drafts. If you'd like to see it, I can send it on, but it's 100-plus pages, and, I mean, Laura worked on the previous open space plan.
Well,
I value your input, but I also don't want to waste your time. I'd much rather get a last draft almost
Fine tune
done,
it.
get some comments from you guys. 'cause
Well,
we're
I
not going to
mean-
reinvent the wheel.
From my vision, I look at this is the time, the last one was kind of hurried through,
Mhm.
late in the game. I'd
Mhm.
like to really, revisit this and make sure it has
Yep.
what we want in there and is focused in the directions that we want it to go.
And one aspect that we're paying attention to this time is it's technically the open space and recreational plan. And the last one didn't even have that title, it was the open space plan. And it had even less to do with recreation. Was it called that full thing?
It was.
Oh, it was.
And
The-
it was
the head
focused,
title.
it was focused on recreation, and to a
Really?
large degree, too. Mhm.
Really?
Mhm.
Okay, well, the consultants looking at it didn't think it focused much on it, but again, that's
No.
their angle.
Maybe they were looking at
Yeah.
the prior
All the
one.
documents I saw, it said open space plan, and so.
I'd be interested.
Okay, I can send that draft. Again, it's not complete, but it gives you an idea of where we're heading with it.
What kind of changes were being made to it?
Honestly, I don't know.
And where did they
Um,
come from?
Where did what changes?
The,
At this point, most of the changes that I'm working with him on are adding new parcels, creating the charts and the flow charts in different format, more to what the state standards are. Updating a lot of the maps, so all the open space mapping, all of the land use mapping and stuff like that. A lot of it's being handled by MVPC in Gerard and more GIS type data.
so there were something like 6 different objectives and goals
Yep.
that we had stated in there. Have they been changed or updated or
We're
kept?
working on updating it. So we've had a bunch of different surveys done. We had an open public survey done, our meeting here about a month ago. There was a whole bunch of phone call interviews with different shareholders, so people, big players in town, GIA, Park and Rec, schools, a lot of those to understand what our active rec situation is and what's missing and what improvements can be made, what's working well. So they're using a lot of the information that we're getting from these different people involved in the town and from that town meeting to kind of get a feel. One of the examples is, apparently it's a sizable horse community in Georgetown. I wasn't aware of this. There's nothing in it, for the most part, regarding horse riding. So they're gonna add a section more related to horses in town. And I know the Driftway Farms, when we create parking for that Driftway parcel of open space, we're gonna include enough room for a horse trailer to pull in and turn around.
Yeah, I know there was some concern up
Concepts
there,
like that.
but
Again, so I think that's one of the newer things that I've noticed in the plan, but most of it's boilerplate, the history, what's actually here, it is what it is.
yeah, I mean, if you do look, there are quite a few horse properties,
Yeah.
and many people do have them,
Yeah.
so.
That's a great idea. Can I come in and have a look at it?
I can send it to you.
How
It's
big,
all
how
electronic.
big of a file is it?
Oh, okay.
It's pretty big. I mean, it's not complete, we're probably halfway done with it, but I can cut out all the data for like the mapping, which,
I'm familiar with that mapping.
Yeah,
I
you have
guess
more the
it's the
narrative- the narrative and
objectives
the
and
objectives and
the,
stuff
and the
like that.
goals and
Yep.
stuff that I'm interested in.
I mean, I'll just forward around to
I'm sure-
everybody.
I think I'm still on the open space committee, I'm not sure.
I think
But-
you're off because you didn't ask to be reappointed, and that cycle went through, so I booted you.
Oh, thanks,
Sorry.
okay.
You can get back
I'll
on if
look
you want.
anyway.
Yeah. So I'll send that to everybody. If you don't want to read it, just.
You wanna
just
be
read
on
it.
there? Oh,
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Yeah, that way you can have.
I mean,
an option
if
to read it.
commissioners wanna comment at this point, they can, if,
Yeah.
they wanna wait further on downstream, when you get an additional draft, that's fine too.
There's a lot of holes in it. Highlighted are all the questions that haven't been answered yet, so you can kind of see where we're going with the document. But it's interesting. You know, I'm kind of curious to see the outcome. You think you hire a consultant for $7,000?
I
You think you'll get some hugely different? So far, it's the history. They can play with it.
I
tweak
think,
it.
you know, the open space committee, you know, had it for, you know, a number of years. They were trying to get it through, and then they
Mhm.
got it to a point, and then they kind of stalled out on it. But we needed to get it that
Mm.
finish point so we could get it submitted to get.
But they did
the
90+% of
Right.
it. You know, it was
What
really just the
happened was we
changes.
submitted it, and then it came back from the state
Oh, yeah.
with 2 pages of really detailed amendments that needed to be made to it, and that took that was the last really tough push to
Yeah.
get it through. That took a long time.
But I think at that point, we were kind of short of
We were.
open space members, so getting
were.
that task done was a challenge.
And
There were
like
3 of us, yeah.
ADA compliance, there was actually a lot of field work involved in doing the ADA. Awesome, thank you. There was a lot of ADA compliance related surveys that had to be done.
Mhm.
And again, you guys were so busy and you're doing a lot of, you know, Word documents and stuff like that. So in the end, I ended up doing all the surveys. So it was a very team effort to get.
But I'm
it
also
through.
interested in some of the overriding guiding philosophies. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
as far as where should we be looking for parcels?
And again, I'm not sure how they're gonna handle that. We've discussed it, we've identified.
Well, I mean, I don't
all
want
the
to
areas.
be completely laissez-faire in this process and just say
Of course.
consultant will
Well-
handle it and they'll tell us what to do.
No, I think the point is to get them to, they've surveyed, they've researched, they're doing the things, they're the hired guns in this situation. My plan is to let them provide us with a draft and then read through it and, you know, get some guidance. If they're the experts, I know I'm not an expert in open space management and recreation. Kind of get a draft from them.
No, but you
And if
probably
it's heading the wrong
probably
direction.
have more expertise in Georgetown than
Definitely.
these folks do.
But I mean,
so.
just kind of get a feel for where they're heading with it, you know, see where they're going, and if it's totally different than the feel of the commission, the open space, and everyone else, we can redirect, but I'm kind of giving them a little room to see what they come up with, because that's what we're paying the money for.
Well, you know, in reality, I mean, consultants work based on the concept of boilerplate documents. I mean, they take the one that they took for whatever community, Rowley or whatever, and they start cutting and pasting names. You want to make sure it's truly individualized for your
Catered to
community
Georgetown.
and not just, you know, someone put on the word processor, switch Georgetown for Rowley and just
Yep.
send it out. I mean, I've been a consultant, I know how that works.
Yeah, no, I agree, I totally agree.
I'm sorry, how long have they had it and have been working on it so far?
Probably 3+ months, maybe
Okay.
4.
So we're still kind of in the early part of it where they're still proposing.
We're probably more than halfway.
Okay.
We have a really
So
aggressive.
This is a good time to look at it.
It is. We have a fairly aggressive timeline, given they're working on it full-time technically, and they're the hired consultant. When we did it, it was all when people had time. And, you know, for example, if you didn't get a section done by Monday, it is what it is. You're a volunteer. We're holding to a much tighter timeline this time, so.
So do we
I'm
have,
hoping
do we have a date that we've given them?
I don't have it off the top of my head. I can forward it, the contract along, when I send that out.
Is there any focus on having some of the open land be available to use for things like town orchards or town grazing plots or?
I've brought that up every single meeting and discussion I've had with them. I've pointed that out. If it doesn't show up in the document, it will definitely get brought up.
Okay.
We have a lot of, I think, potential areas, and this conservation restriction on Wheeler Brook came up in these meetings 6 months ago, before the actual restriction got locked in at town meeting. So, again, that will get captured. You know, that's protection of farmland. You know, that has a lot of value. So we're definitely paying attention to that aspect of land protection.
Good.
We probably could start hitting
Okay.
the first couple of cases.
All right. We're past the time for the first hearing, so we can open that and continue that. It being on or after 7:15, I'm going to open the notice of intent for 6 Norino Way, GCC 2013-06, construction of a 3,900 square foot storage area addition to an existing building and an underground detention area outside the buffer zone with a discharge outlet into the buffer zone of the BVW. And I believe we have a request from the applicant to continue this.
Correct. At the last meeting, we had probably 5 to 7 action items that they needed to kind of investigate, improving the stormwater, a couple of grading issues, details, and some questions the commission had on snow removal, the O&M plan. One of the aspects, they required the plans to be modified and then also be reviewed by the town's third-party engineer. They didn't get the plan fully drafted till this week, so it didn't have a chance to go to our third-party reviewer and get reviewed.
So they're simply just not ready.
So they're just not ready.
That's fine.
Okay, make a motion to continue 6 Norino Way, GCC 2013-6, 161, Foo 761. Notice of intent to August 15th,
At 7:30, please.
7:30 PM.
We have a second for that.
A second.
We have a motion, it's been seconded to continue the notice of intent for 6 Norino Way to August 15th at 7:30 PM. Is there any discussion?
Well, other than it's on their part, not ours.
Correct. They requested,
Request.
they requested in writing a formal request to continue to the next meeting.
And I have no problem with that.
Nope.
If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All abstaining? Thank you. All right. Next. Well, we're a couple minutes early for the next hearing. So, do we have anything else to discuss? Any bills? Any other business?
We can, actually, I have some bills and some certifications of compliance that we can pull up. 2 bills. Georgetown Building Supply for Camp Dennison, $27.31 in total. And 2 electric bills for Camp Dennison, one for $9, one for $294. Again, 2 bills for electricity at Camp Dennison, because they have 2 meters, one for the main lodge and one for the cabins, the outbuildings. And that's the only bills we have for today. You did the other 200 of them at the last meeting.
And
You
the
came at good
the
time.
294 is for what period of time?
5/23 through 6/24 month.
A month?
$300?
Workshop in the Woods was out there. Workshop in the Woods is a,
I'm just surprised that level of energy.
Wait, they weren't there then. They don't
it
start till
till-
later. Do they not?
no, they're already done.
But they went
Yeah.
till the end of June, that
Yeah.
bill?
Yep,
May to June?
June 24th.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we usually get a spike this time of the year because they're doing more work down there, Workshop in the Woods. I gotta be honest, I
And I think
don't
the
really,
electric spikes us a little too.
I don't.
Because it's the
yeah,
usage, high
yeah.
usage.
I don't tend, we signed the contract and that went all through. I tend not to track the exact, but I can do that for you guys if you want, is show when they're there and show the spike.
Yeah, I'd just like,
This time of the year, usually we get a little spike in the spring due
have
to
some-
activity and Workshop in the Woods.
analysis of really what's going on. I'm just, they don't have air conditioning down there that I'm aware of.
They might, I almost guarantee you the camp manager's apartment
Well, yeah, but he's
does.
probably got a small window
Yeah,
type.
that
unit.
apartment's half the size of this entire room.
Right.
So, and they've insulated it, they've done a lot of improvements to make it more efficient, so. Those are the only 2 bills that I have for you guys tonight.
Motion to pay the bills.
We have a second.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second to pay the bills as read by Steve. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All abstaining? Motion carries.
I have some certifications of compliances for you guys. This is 2 Farm Lane. It's an old one. And I'll be honest with you, it's one of those old plans that looks like it was drawn on a napkin. So it's kind of harder to,
Seen a couple of them, huh?
Yeah.
again, it's hard to say, the grading isn't perfect, because you really can't tell what the grading was supposed to be. So there's a little bit of flexibility. I worked on this one for a while. I'm okay with it. Is it you might want to keep it, you get more stuff coming. It's not a perfect project, and I can show you guys the details if you want. But I believe it's reasonable to sign it off at this point, given the lack of clarity and detail in minutes from the original approval. We tend not to see very many of them. If you are okay with that.
So you don't have any issues with it?
No, I do not.
Okay.
The next one, yeah, that was a long-winded way of saying I have no issues with it. Sorry.
Okay.
What is it?
A certification of compliance. So when last meeting, you signed some order of conditions. An applicant comes in with a notice of intent. We issue an order of conditions that gets registered in the registry of deeds. when the project's all done, the way you close it out is a certification of compliance, or COC for short. So this is the closeout document. It then gets registered at the registry of deeds, and it pretty much takes the lien off of the property. Otherwise, there's an open order of conditions on their deed that they need to resolve somehow. And this is
So
the
if somebody
document.
went over and checked out.
Yeah, me. When they apply for the,
Mine doesn't seem that high.
when they apply for the permit to get a closeout
200
document,
kids running
they
around your yard.
submit a as-built, a document
Fields,
that shows
sound-
the whole site and
Fields
its
and
current
sound.
conditions. So you kind of compare the original and the final site plan to make sure it was compliant, and then do a site inspection.
But if we can do anything, it
This,
shows.
you know,
every
again, there's multiple
time it's
pages.
open.
There's multiple pages
A
to
little more in the,
sign on that. There's
contract.
2 pages, I'm sorry.
Sorry, what?
If it shows like it's a spike just for when they're there, we should
Yeah, sure,
throw a little
because
more in the contract.
we've always talked about raising their rent.
Yes.
And I do believe we
So-
should be doing that. It's a good
Is
reason.
it still the same? Do they still pay the same that they have been?
I think
went up
I think it went up
I think I did.
8-10%.
It's not a lot.
But I'm talking
No.
since I've been here.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So we can, I'll actually hit that. My plan this year is to actually try to get this contract signed.
Well, I think-
Laura, if you keep them there, I'll come around.
Okay.
I got like 5 more coming.
Yeah, I
My
think,
plan is to try to hit this document early this year, so we can get all these things worked out. Usually it's last minute.
I mean, I wanna take a look at, make sure the insurance policy is still
Yep.
valid, because they're incorporated as a nonprofit now, so I wanna make sure everything is still legitimate and, just kind of review that whole process.
The other thing that I discovered this year is that the contract that we've been signing is actually a contract that's submitted by the Workshop in the Woods folks, and has not been reviewed by town council before, which is
Not at
really,
all?
yeah.
Really?
It might have been years ago, but the people I
Right.
talked to weren't aware of it. So this year, what I'm thinking of doing is maybe just having K&P review it, mark it up, change it, creating a new template. So all you have to do is change the dollar amount, the dates, and just have signatures versus kind of having to reinvent the wheel every year. This is a certification of compliance for 23 Parish Road. The order of conditions from a few months ago, it's just a basic septic system. Board of Health has signed off on it as being built appropriately. Two different pages to sign. 23 Parish?
Do we have to motion for the COCs?
No, it's an administrative act. And this is a COC again for a septic system, 61 Pond Street. Same situation.
61 Pond, is that the one I had,
No, I think it's a different one.
okay.
This is for 4 Sage Road. This is for a pool and associated grading. I checked on that property. I won't release that until I confirm what I just said. I believe it's different, but I will not release that until I am 100% sure what's going on. 4 Sage Road, that's that pool with a shed and associated grading, and they did,
Back.
yeah, and they did a large mitigated planting area with native plants. Again, 2 spots to sign on that document.
Is that the one right off of Tenny? No, we have a different one.
I'm not sure which
Right
one.
at the end of Tenny, there was one like that. Small little kiddie pool, we were just,
No, this is a huge pool.
yeah.
3 minutes till the next hearing. Trying to think what else I have for you guys to sign.
Well, I wanted to bring up, as
True.
far as appointments, I think we need to make sure the camp manager is appointed, because
Yep,
I think
yearly.
his appointment is out there.
Yep. And Susan just brought up, we actually can do the 175 Central Street project, because that started at 7:30, so we can move that one along.
See, a lot different on this side of the table, isn't it?
It's so nice.
She just
Not
signs it,
typing
throws
every
it,
word
yeah.
out of everybody's mouth.
Look at her.
So-
So relaxing.
That could change. Okay. I think we are after 7:30. It being on or after 7:30, I'm going to open a notice of intent for 175 Central Street, GCC 2013-10, replacement of an existing septic system, upgrade and renovation of an existing building. And I think we also have a request from the applicant to continue.
Correct. This is one that at the last meeting, the commission requested a third-party review be done.
Yes.
I got the estimate. I notified the applicant of the cost of the third-party review, and they're on vacation and won't be back till next week. So I can't start the review. Bottom line
Until they
is,
okay it.
yeah, well, I need the cash. I need the check in hand deposited before I can initiate the review.
Yep.
We did that once where we started the review and then they didn't pay us, and it's just wiggly. So I just need more time to get that closed out. I'm also working with the Board of Health on this one. Part of the reason I wanted to have the third-party review done is that we tend not to deal with the mechanical components of a septic system. We kind of deal with the distance of the system related to our protection, which is a 100-foot setback. 99% of the time, we rely on the Board of Health to really review the guts of the system to make sure it's working properly. It's been going on at the Board of Health level for quite a while now, and I think they're really trying to tease apart, is the system going to work appropriately, and answer some questions.
What was it, Clevis or something like that?
Yeah. Waterless, not really 100% sure how the system works. Part of the reason I want to get an opinion from the third-party review is, should we really be maybe waiting and holding off on the Board of Health to do an approval? Often we do that. We say, have you have an approval from the Board of Health? Answer is yes, it looks good with our angle, let's let it go through. On occasion, precedents we have set, we've issued it, but then a week later, the Board of Health approved it. With this one, I would caution the commission, I would recommend waiting on a decision from the Board of Health, because I believe there are some questions that aren't not being answered, have not been answered yet. Again, so we're looking to continue it tonight, but just to kind of let you know where it stands and some of the information that I've discovered since I've been researching it since the last meeting.
Yeah, it is kind of a unique
You're right.
system.
Waterless, no affluent.
And we don't get involved in how it works. We just hear an applicant say, it works great.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But in the
And that-
distances
and
is
that field
what it
doesn't
is.
flood either,
Yeah.
I mean,
And so, again, I have a third-party estimate to do that review. It seems like a reasonable scope of work that I'm happy with. It's investigating, the stormwater-related stuff.
Well, it's not just a straight replacement system,
Again,
that's.
we need to
right.
better understand what it really is, and I think the way the document was presented, it was a little confusing, because there's things going on this property and that property. We approved the other one, so that's off the plate, but we still have to deal with the existing system as it is. So looking for a continuation to August 15th.
I'll entertain a motion.
but our newest commissioner, think she
Oh.
could
How exciting. All right. I'd like to make a motion to continue. Do I have to give the number? Okay. Notice of intent, GCC 2013-10, DEP number 1610763 to August 15th at, what,
7:35.
8 o'clock, 7:45?
Please.
Okay.
do that. Second.
We have a motion, it's been seconded to continue the notice of intent for 175 Central Street to August 15th at 7:45. If there's any further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining.
Oh, I'm sorry, who seconded that?
John?
Thank you. Right, it being on or after 7:35, I'm going to reopen a notice of intent for 186 East Main Street, GCC 2012-01. New soccer field, skateboard park, and dog park off East Main Street. If I could have the applicant and/or consultant, and if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
My name is Lou Manolette, the engineer representing the project.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Do you feel that vibration?
It's been a little bit of time since I've been here, and I wanted an opportunity to kind of update where this project is. I've been going through a process with the planning board for a special permit. As I've generated documents, updates to drawings, I've been sending copies to Steve, so he kind of generally sees that the concept and the limits that we talked about and sort of agreed to with Concom when we first started the process, we've done our best to respect those limits, so that really the scope of the project in with respect to what it impacts within the Concom's purview hasn't changed. And so with that, I just wanted to review. I brought some extra sets of drawings if, for whatever reason, anybody wants to flip through them or whatever.
But it's, at this point, the Park and Rec's intent to press on with this project. I mean,
Yes, it is.
okay.
Yes, it is.
I thought it was sort of null with the new school. No?
Not according to the Park and Rec.
I haven't heard anything about that yet. It's a little bit beyond the scope of this meeting, but that's wants to. How many copies do you have? Can you do like 2 sets?
Yeah.
Oh, you want?
I kind of thought
It is coming
with the
with
one
a
I
book.
gave you that there would be one.
Here,
more.
I'll share with John
Yeah,
and you share with
I
Willow.
kind of thought you were gonna bring some from the board, just because this is really hard.
Fall off the board.
Yeah.
It was turned into a comedy show.
Yeah,
It's actually easier if it's projected on the screen.
Thank you. Just trying to keep all the paperwork off of the mics, because then the people at home just hear static and rustling.
You sound like you mumble.
Exactly.
So I guess in general, just to kind of refamiliarize the board, if you look at the top of the project site, obviously the project is off of East Main Street. The upper view is the locus map. It shows kind of where in the town it's located, the project's located. The lower portion shows more of a blow up of the actual work limits, where work will be done. The project essentially is off of East Main Street behind what we all consider the New Life Community Church. The driveway, what appears to be the driveway to the church is actually a portion of the parcel that juts out to the road and represents the access to the parcel. That's gonna basically be repaved and then brought to the back. Once you get over the back side of the hill where the kids play U8 soccer, the road will be, basically we're repaving what is already now paved. Once you get to the end of the limits of what is currently paved, except for maybe about another, say 100 feet in the transition to get back to grade, the road will basically be a gravel road the rest of the way through the project. So if you go to the, let's see, probably the best sheet to understand here would be, go to C 2.0. It's sheet number 9 out of 27.
Steve, this is gonna be another notice of intent to look at from the moment.
Yeah, no discussion needed. We need to deal with it.
So that basically is the layout and materials plan showing the work that's gonna be done. We'll be coming up from East Main Street, up the driveway, over the peak of the hill. We're actually taking some of the top of the driveway down and cutting the grade down so we can actually get a reasonable sidewalk up there. We're gonna have a lot of pedestrian movement from East Main Street into the back area. And they'll be doing so kind of in line with vehicles that can move in 2 directions. So obviously you need a sidewalk to segregate the pedestrian flow from the vehicles. Like, we don't expect high rates of speed on the roads. I think the limitation is like 15 miles an hour with all posted. Once you get to the gravel section of the road, the surface is basically gonna feel like crushed stone. So and it's relatively flat, so it does not promote high speed, otherwise you start kicking stones up. It's an uncomfortable feeling when you're driving, and it actually works very well. It kind of has sort of a campground road feeling to it, and it's not a road that you'll fly on, which actually will be good because the idea is not to promote high rates of speed.
It's pretty hot in Massachusetts.
It is. It is. The idea of the project was to allow for adequate parking to do multiple activities.
How many lots was that, as I recall? Was it 50 or 100?
It's enough cars for 100, for 100 spaces. We did some we sort of backed into some calcs about how many to do. Surprisingly, there's very little guidance for sizing parking lots for recreational use, because it's very, it's easy for like an office building.
Sure, based
or-
on occupancy, right.
Yeah. Ironically, it's easier to identify for things that have longer duration here, because, a game lasts 2 hours and there might be another game 20 minutes later. There's a lot of coming and going, and I think there's a kind of some funky math in there, and it would be pretty easy to be wrong. So we just tried to use some common sense as to how to size the thing. There's a skateboard park area, there's a baseball field area, there's a small dog park area, there's access to the trails, there's access to spots to go fishing, and I think there may be talk about some picnic tables or something, but that's kind of down the road. So that's kind of the general look of it. If you flip the sheets beyond that, I think the ones that are of most importance to Concom would be, well, I guess we can quickly go through the first couple of sheets. The first one is the road leading up from East Main Street, and obviously there's no wetlands impacts there. It's all upland area. When you get to the backside of the hill, when you get back down to flat land, it goes back to gravel. The first wetland area that you have there is on the right-hand side. It's a series of flags. This is, for those of you that don't know the site, there's a real pinch point to get into the site. Essentially, you're within, you can look at it from the actual buffers. You're within the 50-foot buffer to get the road actually in to access the land. So that's, I guess, a waiver in and of itself. Once you get past that pinch point, which again is a gravel road, everything else that's proposed to be approved, if you will, is all actually outside of the 75-foot area, with some small exceptions for some stuff within the 50-foot area.
Now, refresh my memory, there was a small isolated near the parking area?
Yeah, there's actually a small area right in the middle of the parking area. If you look on sheet C dash 2.3, sort of near the
Handicapped?
the clump of handicap areas. There's a small area right there.
So you're obviously proposing to fill that?
We're gonna fill that, and if you look to the top of that sheet, there's an area available for replicating. We basically just called out an area that was reasonably adjacent to that.
At what ratio?
Right now, the way it's drawn, it's probably something like 2.5 to 1.
Looks it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the point is that the Park and Rec, I think, is more than willing to do whatever you think is adequate or reasonable. I think their feeling is that you're granting us the ability to do this, and so in exchange for that, again, we're not building a subdivision here, a bunch of houses. It's we're doing some clearing or whatever, and so there's definitely areas adjacent to this area where we could do whatever replication you felt was important.
Now, in the parking area, are you looking at pervious or impervious surfaces?
Everything, once you get to the back side of that hill, which is currently already been paved, everything that you have from that point on is gravel. So everything is impervious.
So the parking area is gravel?
Everything from everything from the end of the backside of the hill for the church, everything from that point on, with the exception of the skateboard park, And right now, the skateboard park, the way that's shown, is basically a big slab of concrete. We've actually got some ideas about doing something within the interior of that space to maybe be something other than a big slab of concrete. And if we do that, there'll be opportunities to recharge stormwater directly below that as well, despite the fact that we have more than adequate sized rain garden and swales around it to catch whatever rainwater we have.
So as far as stormwater, you're over designing it. So if you're designing it accordingly, but if you reduce the
Yeah.
perviousness, then you're in
Yeah,
good shape.
it actually, in some ways, is over-designed, but I think the idea is that,
Rain garden.
you know, we have room available there, and I guess the thing is part of that, the cost to construct one of these rain gardens is relatively, it's not, you know, sort of per square foot. You know, once you mobilize to do a certain task, for a little bit more money, you can basically size it almost to whatever size you want to have. This is not something that's hydraulically connected to a stormwater outlet. It's all perk and vertical because it's over sand, and you've got adjacent ponds. So if you have any kind of overflow issue, you'd have the overflow go into the pond. So it's more than adequately sized. It's more than adequately. In general, it can't rain hard enough, intensity-wise, to overcome the ability of the soil that's there to take the water. With the exception, obviously, of the concrete skateboard park, because obviously that's impervious.
So there's no, in the gravel, there's no drains. Stormwater is just
No
gonna.
drainage system. You're
Yeah, I mean,
running on.
what happens here, first of all, the slopes here are relatively flat. I think it's graded at 1%. We have a sort of an outlying area with a stone buffer and a grass line channel, and then it carries the water basically over to the rain garden area. So I guess the thing with this is it's different than typical stormwater, because you're not increasing the runoff by making things impervious, and you're not channelizing the flow to make it collect all to one point. And it's in an area with soils that have high rate capacity to perk the water vertically. So I mean, it's a site that kind of works. I think the town's fortunate in that regard.
Well, we've always pushed for the impervious, so, I mean.
Yeah.
Impervious.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's just, somebody asked me a while back if there's ever an intention to pave this area, and it's sort of a two-folded answer to that. One, there doesn't seem to be any push to put more money into it for the purposes of paving, and so without any money, the answer is no. And the second thing is, if it were to be paved, I think the applicant understands that sort of all bets are off, because now you've changed the scope. So if you were ever to think about paving this area, you'd have to come back, which means you'd have to do lots of intense stormwater management associated with it, which means you'd probably wind up with pervious pavement or a grass paved system or something along those lines, which honestly is very expensive, and I'm not sure it gets you a whole lot more. I think the town, or the Park and Rec, really wants to see how much activity happens back here, and if it's as, you know, if there's more interest in whatever, and then the town can invest more money into it. The next part of this is the road continues around. The road stretches around the outside of the baseball field. On the way by, it goes by an area that is another isolated land subject to flooding. It was thought at one point to be a vernal pool, but someone in town spent a significant amount of time reviewing the area, somebody who's very knowledgeable, and concluded that that area wasn't a vernal pool. We actually modified the layout of the baseball field and the dog park to get away from another area which was never really believed to be a vernal pool, which now is suddenly showing signs that it is. So we kind of modified where we were to kind of suit what information has come to light relative to the vernal pools. The last sheet in this shows the back corner of the outfield, and there's a dog park over in the back corner, and there's some more handicap spaces there.
Now, explain the dog park. I mean, is this just gonna be a grass fenced off area? I mean,
It's a fenced off area that has like a pea stone gravel surface. It's basically just a penned in area for people to bring their dogs. The Park and Rec really was trying to hit every interest group relative to this, and there was a push to have something related to a dog park, and it may not be in the optimal spot, but right now it's sort of in the optimal spot for where it fits today. If somehow this project ever, if the town decided they wanted to move forward and go, do a wetland crossing, get to additional upland areas, and there are several more there, the dog park could always be moved to part of where the parking lot is, and you might move some of the parking further in, so you space the parking out to meet the areas where the different activities would be done.
now, some of my initial concern is how we approach this in terms of phasing. What I didn't wanna see, and it depends on funding availability, that we just go in and with bulldozers and clear the area out and decide we don't have enough money to
Right.
finish it.
Right.
So, I mean, is it still the intent of Park and Rec to kind of, put the road in, the parking area, and kind of approach it in a phased approach?
I think right now, there is adequate funding for the improvements to the front end, to get to the back, to do the parking area, to do the skateboard park. There would probably be a limited amount of money left over to extend the road in, but not necessarily clear the rest of the area for the ball field.
Because if there isn't money, you're gonna have a big dirt area that's gonna cause a lot of erosion.
Yeah, I'm not,
and
I don't have
I'd
a crystal
heartburn
ball.
with that.
I don't have a crystal ball here, but what I think may happen is you may see that if the road gets there and there's access to it, that there may be some sort of a volunteer effort push in town to do something with this area, and maybe do it with a lot of in-kind or a lot of, moms and dads volunteer help. I know I ran I ran the Bobcat when we rebuilt the.
I mean, are you proposing parents are gonna build this place? I think probably.
I'm not, but if the funding isn't there and we get to this point, I mean, it's really the town's decision as to how that would go. If they appropriate some more funds, then we could advertise it and bid it all as one package. If the funding doesn't change, we could still advertise it, but you have to break it up into segments and then only award the pieces that you have funding for, and that's difficult.
That's my concern, just, I didn't want, a clear cut, and then
Yeah.
we would decide that town doesn't have funds to address it, and then we just kind of abandon it or put just pieces of it in.
Yeah.
And we take actually a fairly nice upland area and wipe it out, and then it sits there for 5 years.
I think what we probably would do is just do the road access in, so that there's the ability to get in there and turn around. I think if you do that, then at least you've set yourself up so that you could do something, if it turns into a volunteer effort just to do the clearing. I mean, maybe I'm thinking outside the box here, but that's what you have to do when you have a limited amount of funding.
I mean, we can condition it so that that doesn't happen. They have to show that they can do it. And again, in my experience with volunteerism, everyone comes well-intentioned. There's some of the largest pine groves I've ever seen in my life out there.
Yeah,
I think the commission can condition it. If that's a big concern of yours, then they have to show that they have the funds and they're ready to do X, Y, and Z before we allow them to start work. You guys can condition it any way you
At least on
want.
the back section.
However you want to do it.
Have a second.
Again, I think we don't need to resolve these issues. There's the issue where we can't really vote on this. They're gonna have to withdraw and reapply and represent the meat of the matter on this project eventually, because we cannot legally vote on this at this point. So
We have a
I like the idea of
Mullen
introducing,
rule issue.
reminding you guys of what's going on and answering some basic questions, but we really don't need to get into we're already behind schedule. We don't have to get into the details tonight and answer all of them, because we can't close it out tonight anyways. I think it's good to get an update to keep you guys in the loop and to express any concerns. If you are really concerned about X, Y, or Z, they can make modifications. When they come back in, we can get up and running. But at some point, they're going to have to withdraw without prejudice and reapply.
But it's, actually, this is the first update we've had in quite some time, so.
It's the first time I've come before the board.
I know you,
I've been sending updates as I've generated the updates, but again, the process with the planning board has really been the focus.
So we're really looking to continue it, and/or at some point, the applicant can withdraw without prejudice, and that can be done in writing at another time.
Right, due to the fact the Mullins law.
And
Honestly,
can you,
I'd-
just for the record, explain that? I think I know what
Well,
it is, but
the
I
Mullen
don't.
Law was a ruling that allows commissioners to only miss one hearing on an open case that they can read up on the minutes and it can be rebriefed.
Right.
You can't miss 3 or 4 or 5, or if we have new commissioners, they can't come in midstream into a notice of intent and
Okay.
then vote on it, because they've missed multiple hearings, so their votes wouldn't be valid. Actually, right now, John and myself are the only ones who could vote on this.
Okay.
It almost might, in my opinion, be better off to hold off till you're getting closer, because what happens on these longer projects is, if we say you withdrew and reapplied next month,
Right.
it might be 6 months or whatever till you're ready to get to where you need an issue. You know, we might have a Mullen issue then too, so there's almost some incentive to
You
let
can
it.
still do you can still do the work right now. You can still,
Yeah.
you can still
All the heavy
proceed on
lifting.
and do site planning and, you know, engineering, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's just from a voting standpoint. We can't, legally, we can't vote on this, even
What
if,
if- what
even if
I-
we were ready tonight.
What I would like to do, and I need to speak to Park and Rec, because they're the ones that are gonna ultimately make the decision here. We're getting close to wrapping up the special permit with planning board. Once we do that, I believe all the design-related changes to the components of this will be done. At that point, what I'd like to do is, well, actually, no, concurrent with that, what I'd like to do is meet one more time with Steve and make sure that at the closest inspection here, that we haven't really blown past any of the lines that we said we would hold back on. If that's in fact the case, then I will finalize whatever the last changes are they have and issue one set of documents. That set of documents will be good enough to be issued a special permit with the planning board, hopefully. My assumption would be that that would also be sufficient for Concom. Like, I think the only thing else
Right,
I have to
what-
do is work out
You'd
the
have to-
replication details on that one
Right,
one
and what
sheet.
you would have to do is withdraw without prejudice
Right,
this notice of intent, and then immediately refile the same thing
okay,
with a new group of commissioners.
okay. Obviously, the Park and Rec is very much interested in wrapping this whole process up. It's taken far longer than they were hoping. Would it be reasonable to assume that this process could be expedited, at least insofar as we've understood what we've proposed and where it is in relationship to the resource areas, that I've gotten some input from Steve as far as, you know, what do you want, 2 to 1, 1.5 to 1? I know there's different opinions about the replication areas. It's a pretty small area, so I'd like to wrap up a sheet like that and then submit it all in one shot. I'm not saying in and out in one meeting, but the idea is to, you understand the scope of the project, you understand the impacts of the project, and I will have explained the replication of the one area that we're talking about.
Yeah, and I'd
Filling
also
in.
like to, you know, open the opportunity for newer commissioners to go out and take a look at the site, you know.
Absolutely, and if, well, I think it probably makes sense to wait till the heat breaks, because it is pretty
Yeah.
brutal out there, but,
Probably wouldn't.
I mean, it's town land, I can
Sure.
bring anyone out there that wants to check it out any time, it doesn't have to
But
be
it
formal.
saves on
It's
time
like-
and saves on questions from
How long
commissioners.
when he reapplies, how long does that take, do you know?
It can be very quick. I mean, it's a matter of just.
2 weeks,
really-
we need, the ad in the paper for the hearing is the big part. So as long as it's roughly 2 weeks before the hearing, state, you know. Again, they can withdraw without prejudice via email, and, you know, send me a memo
Okay.
signed by the appropriate people.
yeah.
They could apply tomorrow for the new notice of intent. I mean, wait till you're there, but we have a meeting on the 15th of next month. They could get on that agenda if all the docs are ready. I don't know if they
Think they'll
will
be
be
ready?
given.
Well, we're going before
The planning
we're
board,
going
so-
before the planning board next week, and we got another set of review comments back, and so I'm hoping that we can go through them and get kind of a final path
We
to
want
be
to put it
done.
on for the 15th, and if anything, if you don't have time, you
You
can.
think you're gonna be ready at that point?
I mean, we could do this September. They can always withdraw without prejudice, refile.
Well, you could,
In the same
we can
time.
continue to August 15th, and you can, if you're not ready, we can just continue at that point.
Yes.
Okay, and is it is it appropriate to save that as a placeholder if we withdraw and refile it and thing and slot me into that same spot?
I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
You can do that administratively.
Yep.
Make a motion.
Within a motion to continue, notice of intent for 186 East Main Street.
Puppy dog eye will.
So I'm talking October 15th at 7:15.
The new,
No, I mean, sorry, September. You want August, or is there any way, I mean, it doesn't sound like it'll be ready in August. Is it better September?
I think I'd like to hang on to August
Okay.
because
That's
there's no
fine.
point in pushing things off.
Administratively, next meeting, we can bump it up, so it captures you some flexibility.
And what about these? You want them back?
What I was gonna say is if the newer commissioners wanna hang on to them because they haven't seen them before, then they'll
Might
have
wanna
to
do
have
that.
them.
You might want to do that.
So
So,
August 15th at 7:50.
Make a motion to continue. 186 East Main, GCC 2012-1, DEP 161-0736 to
August
August
15th?
August
15th at
15th.
7:50.
7:50.
do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion that's been seconded to continue the notice of intent for 186 East Main Street to August 15th at 7:50 PM. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, come on, sir.
Steve, would there be as they're so close to the resources, would there be a time of year where it would be best to do that work?
I mean, we can condition it in any way. So we do it a lot of time when it's in national heritage endangered species habitat. I don't believe this is endangered species habitat, but we can, again, the commission can
Yeah.
condition it any way they want. They can say, this is not to be done during vernal pool season. There's been some evidence there is some vernal pools out there.
Or something very close.
Yeah,
So-
so you guys can condition it any way you want. No segmenting, I mean, whatever your concerns are can be resolved through conditions.
Okay. It being on or after 7:40, I'm going to open up a notice of intent, continuation for Tidd's Junkyard, GCC 2007-11, and concurrently, I'm going to open up the second notice of intent for Tidd's Junkyard, GCC 2007-12. The first notice of intent, -11, was complete site remediation under Chapter 21E, followed by construction of 16 senior housing development units associated with grading, roadway, septic, etc. And the second notice of intent was revisions to the plan of construction of the 16 senior housing units with associated grading, roadway, septic, utilities, etc. If I could have the applicant and/or consultant or representatives, please. Hi.
Jean Pickler. P as in Paul, A, Q-U-I-N as in Nancy. Richie Morello is normally the public speaker.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not.
We're just trying to get an update of kind of where you folks are. This has probably been the longest running hearing in Georgetown history, but since about 2000. So we're trying to get an understanding, what your intentions are. It's most of the cleanup has been done, but there's still probably some, from our perspective, some things we want to verify to close out, before we're willing to do that. So I'm not sure you're able to address that.
Well, Richie got called away, so he elected me. We are planning on continuing.
One of the things we wanted to bring up was, for us to finalize and close out this project for you, it's been so long, we're probably going to need our third-party review consultant to kind of just pull all the documents together and look and make sure everything matches up and everything has been closed out. However, our funding for third-party review is completely expended. So, we were looking for some additional funds to help and assist that closure process. I know you've worked with the DEP over the years as far as the closure is concerned, but we have concurrent hearings going on, both state and local, and we want to make sure after 10 years, actually 13 years, we don't just abandon this process and just say, you know, we're closed and ignore something that, you know, we felt was an issue along that path.
Oh,
So, you know, we're requesting some level of funding to assist in that process. You had an LSP, licensed site professional, and we had a licensed site professional working on this project, kind of as an oversight.
And they both signed off?
No,
No, they didn't?
ours hasn't, we haven't had any funding for probably 5 years for our guy, for our representative. So every time, I don't think you've been here for all of them, everyone that comes before us, we ask for more money so we can pay our third-party reviewer. And we always get a yes, but the money never actually comes through.
So I can't even
So
get
we're
my,
just kind
I
of
can't even get
repeating
my
them.
LSP to talk to your LSP because I have no funds to have that occur. He's not doing it for free, pro bono. I have to pay him, otherwise there's no action.
Has Richie been informed of this?
Every,
'Cause
every,
I'm
yeah.
not copied on
Yeah.
any of the emails.
I think we're just bringing it up just for the record to remind, you know, to let everyone know that we're continuing to ask for it so we can kind of close out this project. We'd like to close it out just as much as you guys would. And again, you know, so.
You don't have to,
there's
you don't
no
have to give me an
changes.
answer this evening, but, you know, we want the process to move forward,
Okay.
and,
Do you have my email address? So
I
that
have a
you
feeling I'm
copy
about to
me?
get it. What is your email address?
It's short for Paquin Excavation. P as in Paul,
Mhm.
A, Q, E, X, C as in Charlie, A, V as in Victor, A, T as in Tom, at AOL.com.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So if I can get a copy of this, and
Yep. I'll send you something Monday.
I can sit and talk to Richie about it,
I mean, you
and
know,
we can let you know what's going on.
and that's fine. I mean, we just want to keep the communication open. That's been a little bit of an issue over the years. You know, we need to keep the dialogue going of what your intentions are, so we can, you know, proceed with this. You know, whether you want to continue with the hearing or want to withdraw, I'm not sure what your intentions are as far as, you know, construction of those housing units. So.
There's also the Mullen Rule
Mullen Rule,
issue
yeah.
with this one also. So eventually, the
Right.
applicant's going to have to withdraw without prejudice. The previous case had the same issue. We have new commissioners, and there's certain,
And essentially,
Farm
this
laws.
has been operating under an enforcement order for about 13 years
13 and a half.
because it started off on the wrong foot from the get-go. So ultimately, you would have to withdraw and refile just so we could legally vote on it, even till we get to that point. Just like the previous case, it's not the commission's doing, it's the state has new requirements for hearings about commissioners have to sit on so many hearings. They can only miss one and make that up.
so I'll email you
All
the comments about that and the need for more money for the LSB. And I can send that to you Monday, and I'll CC everybody else on the list.
Okay.
So, I mean, at this point, we're just looking for a continuation. I'm guessing
That would
it's,
be a big help.
I'm guessing it's not gonna be till next month, so you have September or October. You know, you could take your pick as far as which one. I have a feeling it,
Ma'am, do you have
The
any
third-party
preference?
reviewers.
September or October?
When would be the September?
September 26th.
When we try?
Okay. So, September 26th at 8 o'clock and 8:05.
I will
Mr. Chairman?
entertain a motion.
Make a motion to continue Tids Junkyard, GCC 2007-11 and -12, DEP 161-0666 and 161-0661 until September 26th at 7,
At 8 and 8:05?
8 and 8:05.
We have a motion that's been seconded to continue the notice of intent for Tids Junkyard, GCC 2007-11 and 2007-12. The -11 to be continued to September 26th at 8 p.m. and the -12 will be continued to September 26th at 8:05 p.m. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All abstaining?
Thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks. I'll look forward to that.
Thank you. All right. And it being on or after 7:50, I'm going to open up a new notice of intent for 24 Pillsbury Lane, GCC 2013-13. And that is a new notice of intent for an above-ground pool and deck construction. If I could have the applicant and/or consultant, and if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
The homeowner, Janice Sturdy.
Thank you. Okay. So if you could run us through what you're proposing?
Do you have a copy of the application or no?
If you have an extra copy of the site,
I have a large copy of the
That'd be
plan.
perfect.
Okay. Just right over here? Or?
yeah, probably in the middle, making sure.
It's a simple sketch. And we just want to build like a 22 by 10 foot deck and then put an 18-foot diameter above ground pool here. And the issue with the Concom is this intermittent stream right here associated with this wetland. We're not, a small portion of the deck is 90 feet from the stream.
Was it something you measured, or did you have an engineer consultant measure it?
It was just from the plan.
It's
Yeah.
it's an older wetland delineation that's expired,
Okay.
but it was, official years ago.
Yeah.
So it's close,
It's not valid, but it was done initially.
it's close enough for this discussion, and given this,
Okay, looks like
It
it was
meets-
done by Hayes.
it meets the regulations. I didn't really see a need to spend too much time.
Have you been out there?
I have. It is what it is as far as the resource. The bank is fairly steep. I don't really think it's moved around too much.
So it's approximately 90 feet. Let's see.
Outside the 75,
Yeah, I mean, it
it
looks-
meets
well-
the regs.
And the house is closer than that anyway, so.
We worked together to try to. There's not enough room to get it out of our jurisdiction, so it's the best we could do.
Well, if you're gonna put the deck on the house, that's probably the best
Yeah.
location, farthest away from the resource
Yep,
area.
exactly.
And I assume you're putting in footings for the deck,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just a standard above ground pool. You're gonna put sand down, et cetera.
Yep.
Give me a really big heartburn. You wanna take a look at the plan?
Yeah, what's the date of the thing? Let me ask you.
2002.
Revision,
Yeah,
12/23/02.
thank you. Yeah, agree. Thank you very much.
Sure. I got 17 of these back, and that's 20 that were
That'll
sent.
work.
Do you want the
Excellent.
list?
I think I have the list already
Okay.
somewhere. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Sure.
Any comments, questions, no? Any comments, questions?
Major heartburn.
I will open it up to abutters comments, if there are any. Are there any abutters to 24 Pillsbury Lane? If you wish to speak, please identify yourself for the record and you may comment. If not, that's fine too.
Is this our copy or yours?
Well, do you need it?
I do.
Yeah, we do need a copy
do
for
need
the
this one,
files.
Yeah,
Okay.
if that's okay. we'll
It's
keep this
yours
one.
then.
Do you need a copy?
I think I have it electronically.
If
If
you-
I do, I'll let you know.
If you don't, I can make you a copy.
At some point in time? Sure, okay. I'll let you
Monday.
know.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
If there are no comments, questions, or concerns from the board or the public, I'll entertain a motion.
I'm not qualified to phrase this properly. You go.
And I am.
Good point.
Chairman, to make a motion to approve the NOI for 24 Pillsbury Lane, not accepting the wetland line, dated
12/23/02 with
12/23/02,
with hand modifications.
with hand modifications for placement of pool.
We have a motion that's been seconded to approve the notice of intent for 24 Pillsbury Lane, GCC 2000-13. Not accepting the wetland line for above-ground pool and construction of a deck. I have a comment. Do we have a DEP number for that?
We do not, no. We don't. So we coordinate with the DEP, and it's exempt given the distance and the square footage of actual
Okay.
activity. And I did check that with the DEP.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining.
Mr.
I will
Chairman?
entertain a motion to close the notice of intent for 24 Pillsbury Lane.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the NOI for 24 Pillsbury Lane, GCC 2013-13.
Second.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded to close the notice of intent for 24 Pillsbury Lane. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstaining? Thank you.
So you'll hear from us beginning of next week, once all the docs are printed and signed, and you can pick that up like
Okay.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Sure.
And the heat wave's over.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
You're welcome. All right. It being on or after 7:55 PM, I'm going to open an ANRAD, abbreviation Notice of Resource Area Delineation, for rear Lisa Lane, 18 Lisa Lane and 44 Searle Street, GCC 2013-14, DEP 161-0765. And that is a wetland delineation, and that's what we will be discussing this evening. If I could have the applicant and/or consultants, and if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
Throw me off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Chris Sparagis.
Thank you.
I'm a principal at the Engineering and Survey Office of Williams and Sparagis in Middleton. And with me here this evening, the wetland scientist that helped us prepare the delineation for the ANRAD plan, Mary Rimmer of Rimmer Environmental Consulting. The applicant is Artisan Development, and in the audience this evening is a representative, one of the principals from Artisan Development, Mr. Ralph Miola. The subject property has three separate owners, and the ANRAD application has owner authorization from each of the owners. If I get up to point of the plan, Mr. Chairman, will
Absolutely.
it'll pick me up?
That'd be great.
So the subject property is outlined in the brown color here. North is in that direction on the plan. You can see some of the surrounding property. I can feel people shifting in the background. Is there maybe a better way to?
Well, if we can turn it so commissioners can still see it and move it to a point where we can get the audience to see it. I don't want to get too far away, so I don't need my telescope, but.
I want folks, I know there are probably several abutters here for the project, that this is a strictly, determining the limits of the wetland resources on the subject property, and we'll have many meetings to come for what's proposed for the property, I'm sure. So, that having been said, the limits of the property of the three ownerships comprises approximately 45 acres, and it's shown on three separate parcels on Assessor's Map 16. Number 2, 17, and 80. The wetland resources were flagged back in December and April this year. We have wetland resources that include bordering vegetated wetland. We have some isolated wetland, and we also have some inland bank along a couple of sections of intermittent streams. And we also have some bordering land subject to flooding, which is identified most specifically on the Georgetown floodplain district to elevation 87. In the one isolated wetland that you see in the middle of the site here, away from the BVW, which surrounds us, We also identified vernal pool characteristics, and that's shaded in a darker green color. We flagged those limits as well as the limits of the vegetated wetland. And we showed buffer zones that extend 100 feet, not only from the BBW, but from the isolated wetland and the vernal pool flags themselves. I'll let Mary Rimmer get up and go through a little bit more of the specifics on the wetland resources, and both Mary and I can help answer questions.
Is something on green cards from notifications?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Was everyone able to be notified via the green cards?
Yes, we were able to notify everyone based on the list that was provided to us by the assessors.
No one sent back?
We have one that was sent back, and it was the town of Georgetown, the way it was listed. But other than that, everyone else appears to have been notified.
Okay, so, the property is essentially a large hill that slopes down in this direction and this way here. And, the perimeter primarily of the property along the base of the hill contains a wooded swamp system. This area drains in this direction and down in this direction here, connecting off-site. So this wetland here and this wetland here are most likely connected at some point off-site. There's the power easement that traverses the site right here. So you'll note on the plan that we have only delineated the wetland boundaries on the interior of this wetland. So there's some exterior wetland boundary here that we're not requesting any confirmation or approval on because it's beyond any area that it would be proposed for any future work.
Normally you look
Here.
within 200 feet of a resource?
Right, where it might have a bearing on any future work on the site. So that's how it's being presented right now. There wasn't any specific need to identify the boundaries for those resources. We're showing an approximate boundary and that it exists. But since the ANRAD process is a voluntary process and we're just requesting confirmation of the resources as shown on the plan, hoping that the board will agree with that. And as Chris mentioned, there was a small isolated wetland right here that does qualify as a vernal pool. It did have some evidence of obligate breeding of vernal pool species. And there's some off-site wetland on this side of the property as well that we're showing buffer zone associated with that. Any questions about the delineation?
And you said you did this in a combination of December and April?
We were out there several different times, yes. So I think the initial walkthrough might have been fall of 2012. We had to refresh the flags a few times, so been out there several times. The most recent was this past April, I think, when we refreshed the flags.
We need to come back and revisit that isolated wetland to try to see if it had any characteristics associated with vernal pool.
Right, we did the vernal pool inspection this spring.
No work's proposed either, right?
Well,
Just an ANRAD.
in ANRAD, that, we don't talk about proposals or we talk about just the resources.
Yep.
Well, I would suggest doing a third-party review of this parcel, given its size.
And our standard procedure of that.
And I also would suggest conducting a site walk. So at this point, off-site, you don't know with these, if there's any impact of these other resources out here, how far they extend beyond your property line?
I'm not sure.
No, I mean, our regulations require that you look off property line.
Right.
So I can get a better handle
We're
of-
showing, like I said, and I think like I said, because there's no proposal to cross this wetland for any reason.
Yeah, I understand
So
that.
this, we didn't specifically delineate.
And I
If
think I can
it's something
explain a little
that-
bit further,
yeah.
Mr. Chairman. So the short answer is we have looked at all of the wetland resources that could possibly impact our plans within 200 feet of the property. Those wetland resource areas have been walked and flagged by Mary. We've located them by survey, but we also recognize that on the other side of the PDW that comes through the site in this fashion, there's wetland in the middle, and there's upland that's on the other side of this wetland resource area. And through here, we flagged it on both sides. Once we got to the back here, the grade drops off pretty quickly. We know that there's a vernal pool area here. There really was no need to flag the other side of this wetland area. We've shown it approximately using some of the regional mapping that we have at our disposal. But we're not, this buffer zone, if you will, does not impact the property proper more than the buffer zone associated with the wetland on that side. So that's why we haven't flagged this area here.
So in whatever future decision that you make on the property, if you want to make any statements about not approving or not.
That would be
doing
correct.
We've done that
That side of
before
that.
where they don't think they're going over there, but then they come with a notice of intent, plans change, we can reevaluate, we're locking in what they're showing, not what's outside the property lines. We have a little.
No, but they're actually referencing, they're not, some of the flags in the property, they didn't look at. Yeah, back-
Typically, it's off property, where this one, we'll just write the conditions specific to, comment that we're not accepting anything beyond that line, not the
Just to
property
limit
line.
the scope of the
front line.
survey for the projects, and it wasn't necessarily
So-
go in that area.
We'll reference the wetland edge beyond that, not the property line, usually we reference the property line.
Every wetland resource that we've walked and delineated in accordance with DP's guidelines has a number associated with it. Any line that you see on the plan that's shown as an approximate wetland resource does not have a letter and a number associated with it. So that's an easy way to differentiate between the two.
Is this national heritage?
I have not checked it.
No.
So we've checked it, and it's not currently mapped as an area of estimated or priority habitat.
Okay, any comments from commissioners? Again, I'd suggest we have a third-party review of the property.
Could I ask, is that a stream? Sorry, there's a very dark line between the top wetland and the one.
This is
Can it-
actually the limit of the floodplain.
Oh, okay.
Floodplain boundary.
I couldn't
That's
see what that was
elevation,
from here.
And it cuts right through it, right.
Okay.
So that's just where it's not within in the wetland itself, it extends beyond the wetland.
Okay.
Impressed you can see that from here, period, let alone what it is.
That's pretty good, yeah.
That's
Right,
impressive.
this is an area of upland, and as Mary mentioned, the wetland sort of flows in this direction. This wetland goes around this knob of upland, and so does this, and they meet on the other side at some point.
What is the grade of that hill going down towards the wetland?
So, I need my
Looks-
glasses for that,
looks
I'm
pretty-
sorry.
looks pretty
Top-
steep
From the top
in
of
this
the
section.
side. There's,
From say the middle of the site, or somewhere more specific, are you interested in?
What kind of
local
going down
lines?
towards the wetland I was sort of looking at?
Make sure they don't do it.
Right, so topographically, there are topographic highs here and here,
Uh-huh.
and the land does slope in this direction. And then this is an isolated sort of depression, but across this distance, we can go over to our more detailed picture, because I can't even read those with my eyes. But this high point here is approximately elevation 146. And when you get down to the wetland, closer to the wetland edge, it's elevation 87 at that floodplain elevation. That's sort of the difference between this high ridge here and the wetland, the DLSF here, floodplain.
Well, I definitely believe a sidewalk is in order.
Make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, first off, for a third-party review. How's that? Yeah?
You can
I
combine
would-
it.
I would suggest probably BSC.
BSC?
I actually have an estimate from
Yeah.
BOC.
You do?
Yeah, I sent it out when I first got the application, just to help speed up the process.
Is there a second for the third-party review? We have a motion, it's been seconded to conduct a third-party review of 18 Lisa Lane and 44 Searle Street parcel. Any further discussion? Yeah.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay. That's okay with us to go ahead and hire BSC Group and get that going. I didn't know if that's something that you would normally include in your motion or is that a separate motion for selecting, going along with BSC Group?
Well, we sometimes do it either way.
Okay. Sure, that's perfectly okay with us, and we expected that, and we're hoping that,
Standard procedure.
that's right. Thank you.
And probably I would suggest if we'd have Gillian Davies do the work.
Yep.
Is there any further discussion on the third-party review? As far as timeline, do you have any?
I can sign the contract and have it, I can scan and send it Monday. And then it's up to the wetland scientist to coordinate, when you guys are available.
Mhm.
I can do the commission's end of it by Monday morning, first thing.
Okay, good. I'll call the question. If there are no further questions, discussion.
Only comment is, again, this is not good vernal pool season as far as identifying vernal pools. The third-party review will evaluate to the best of their abilities characteristics of a vernal pool, but it's not the best time. There is some
Summer.
evidence that's been provided by some abutters of concern of vernal pools on the property. So again,
Well,
spring
again,
is the best time to do it.
Right. I mean, our regs assume it is until we prove otherwise, so.
Yep. And so I think we can get into that whole debate about waiting till the spring to do that review. I think what would be reasonable is to get the third-party reviewer out there, assess the property, and, if there are if the wetland scientist can't come to some closure or conclusion, maybe come back and say, well, if we really can't agree on this, then we'll have to wait till the spring to review it. We can continue. We've done that. We've continued projects 5-6 months to get to that time. I think it'd be reasonable, at least to get this process started, start reviewing the lines. And again, if they can work out in the field, what is vernal pools and what is not based on the current conditions, and it's clear enough, given I've never seen some of these wetlands, give them a shot to resolve it. Just realize that that might be a potential issue with doing it this time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely considering the
Yeah,
dry
I mean,
conditions.
the driest time of the year is not the best time to look at vernal pools.
We do have a memo from a citizen with some evidence, pictures of egg masses off property and audio of vernal pool species croaking away. So there's definitely, that is something we really need to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm. I agree. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
All abstaining. Motion carries to conduct a third-party review. And I would also suggest post the third-party review, we do a site walk out there at some point.
Do you want to leave the date of that open-ended, given we don't know when the third-party review is going to get done? I mean, we often pick
Yeah,
a
we-
date, but I don't know if it really is required. I can email out a couple of options and we can kind of agree, coordinating that via email.
Well, I guess we could make a general motion that the commission
do it,
agrees to
okay.
conduct a site walk.
Site,
Date to be
Date
determined.
to be determined.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we have a site walk, rear Lisa Lane. Site, time to be determined after the third-party review has come back. Is there a second?
Second.
It's protocol, normally in the middle of a motion, we don't answer questions, but I will allow it.
Mr. Chairman, only because the attorney on the project, Attorney Joe Mann from Middleton, asked me to speak regarding attendance at the site walk. Sometimes these types of site walks are open to the public.
This is true.
And sometimes they're not. So for the ANRAD hearing, the owners, through their attorney, respectfully request that they would not like to have any abutters on the property as part of the site visit during the ANRAD process. But they've also indicated that as we move forward through the development process, there'll be an opportunity during a notice of intent, a future notice of intent, where we'd be happy to to have folks come onto the property. That was a request that was asked by the owners.
Okay.
Thank you.
And also, I'd like from your office an authorization that commissioners can go on the site.
Absolutely. That's not a
We've had
problem.
some legal issues before with that.
Okay.
As part of our sworn duty. And where were we? We're in the middle of a motion.
Does that need to be incorporated in the motion? The public is not.
I suppose it could if you could remotion that.
Amended to be closed to the public for commissioners and scientists and owners of the property to be allowed at the sidewalk.
Representatives of the commission.
Representative.
I'll finish the motion, I'll answer your question.
Second.
The motion, and it's been seconded to conduct a site walk, and, which does not allow the public, it's for commissioners, consultants, and/or reps of the commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? And there was a comment from the audience, or a hand raised. I will, if you identify yourself for the record, I will hear you.
Kevin Duncan, 46 Searle Street. I think what you just voted on is probably wrong because the abutters know the property better than anybody in this room. I own 46 Searle Street. I'm probably the largest abutter. I'm pretty sure you guys will find this out. There's a second title, vernal pool right to the left. That big green one right on the border. If you guys check that out.
Well, that's exactly what we're trying to do in this process.
Okay.
That's really why we hire, another specialist, our own consultant to verify what their consultants are saying, and that's the
Just thought
process.
I'd point out that spot.
What we can do is, if I can catch up with you later, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever you want, we can look at a plan, and you can point out the specific spot that you're concerned about.
Sure.
And I'll make sure it gets, every single spot gets looked at, but if you have a spot that you feel very comfortable is additional protection,
But I just want to make a comment, the applicant does have the right to, it's private property, they do have the right to, prohibit the public from going on private property. If they choose to, they can allow it. If they don't want to choose to do that, that's their right
You're
to.
welcome to go on our property if you want.
I think the pool, actually, if you look, it's right on the line, actually, the butts right onto mine. I'm not sure how many feet each way, but.
Would you mind just showing, because I'm not picturing it personally, if you just don't mind pointing to
Glad
it.
to see this map here.
It's right by where the
Oh,
road
sorry about that. This is me.
Okay.
Been skating out here for years, 30 years, so
Okay.
this would be the area.
So that's
Okay, thank you.
So,
that's the G series.
And you can pretty much go out in the summer, if people that know about vernal pools, you don't really need to wait till it rains.
Well, it depends on the conditions. You have very dry,
Especially this, right. around
season,
this
and you're
time
not
of
gonna
year.
see maybe what you wanna see. There was another, hand raised out there. If you identify yourself for the record, please, you can speak.
Walter Wilkins, 2 Wilkins Place. At the preliminary plan meeting with the planning board, the engineer stated that they would be mining material off the property for use on the road. My question is, how close to the wetlands will it be, and will it affect it at all?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, Mr. Wilkins, which we have, and it's no secret that we've submitted and appeared before the planning board as part of our ORSRD special permit process and the preliminary plan hearing. So our hope is to try to use some of the on-site material as borrow material at some point, should a project approving a roadway be approved. And so that would be our plan, but the details of that plan and limits of work, that sort of thing, we still haven't worked those out yet. We certainly will.
That's a whole nother hearing process. That, I don't wanna get too wrapped up in that, because it's actually a whole separate series of hearings. We'll talk about if they, bring that to fruition in terms of a notice of intent, and then we would get more into what they would propose to build. Here, we're just looking at the resources, and I shouldn't even really get into those kind of questions about asking about roadways or houses or any of that stuff, so. We're just trying to look at wetlands and resources, vernal pools.
Yeah, my concern was, will it affect the wetlands?
that's what we're hoping to determine. And through this whole process, you know, that kind of information is useful and helpful to us, and you know, we're gonna try and look at all this and look at the impact. I mean, that's really what we're here for, to determine, minimize the impact. Couple hands up there. This lady, woman over here.
Chris LaPlaca, 9 Rosemary Lane. I'm in a neighborhood across the way. Anyway, you said the arrows pointed down, water flow, the arrows pointed up, water flow. That's kind of my property. So what I'm concerned about is the wetlands that are affected that are not on this map, that are going to be getting additional water once this building happens, because we had some beavers move in, and we have the terrain out there that used to be a forest is now a pond with a lot of dead trees. And my property is just about ready to go underwater. So if I get any more water.
Well, and that's why our regulations require that developers look 200 feet off site at what those resources are, just so we get an idea and you can look at the impact. I mean, when somebody develops, their activities aren't supposed to impact other folks, so.
I guess, but when you have a hill that's at, 146 down to 87, and then I'm even lower than that, just some drainage on site there, I don't see how it's going to prevent
Well,
water
again,
coming.
in the notice of intent, you probably have to get involved in stormwater plans and all that sort of thing associated with this. I mean, at this phase of what I've got in front of me, I can't necessarily make those kind of calls and determinations, because, right in front of me, there's nothing proposed. I'm looking at existing wetlands. So we will end up discussing all those things, but it's kind of premature, but a valid concern. Yes.
Yeah, George Comiskey, Old Jacobs Road. I'm wondering, you're hiring a third-party review. Are they going to be going over the wetland line in August, or are they going to be looking at the wetland line in, let's say, October? When it's more wet?
Well, we haven't determined when they're gonna do that yet. It's something they need to work out once we contract with them.
Most likely in the next month and a half.
The driest month?
Which is why we'll kind of address the concerns on, vernal pools and as part of it. If there's some area that has potential habitat value as far as a vernal pool and shows characteristics, that will probably get flagged and there'll be a discussion regarding that. And if it can't be determined in the field, then, maybe the next option is to wait till the spring to further look at it. The regs do speak to that where, if there's evidence suggesting it is until the applicant proves otherwise. To prove it otherwise means waiting until the spring, then that's the only option we have, unless they're willing to accept it as a vernal pool. If they question or challenge it, we can wait till the spring to.
Yeah, I'm not talking about vernal pools, I'm just talking about the wetland line,
Just curious.
being
Yeah.
more wet in fall or spring rather than looking at your wetland line in
They look at a
August.
lot of the hydrology, there's other criteria, so visible water on the surface is not all they look at. So you can do a pretty accurate job of doing it even during dry season based on,
Soils, plants, et cetera.
plants and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a number of indicators, and they shouldn't just use one.
And they typically don't.
You can address it if you want.
No, that's fine. We can do the delineation any time of year based on the criteria that the state has established, which is 50% or more wetland plant species that are present, which would be persistent throughout the year, throughout the growing season. And soil indicators within the first 2 feet of soil, not wetness, but actually soil color and texture and specific features that you're looking for that would occur in an environment that has a high groundwater table, which the wetlands do. So you should be able to do it anytime.
However, we in the wintertime, we do not accept do site walks and accept those lines because of that. We have issues with doing delineations at that time of the year. I mean, I've been told by wetland scientists in 4 feet of snow that I can identify every blueberry bush out there and every vernal pool as they dig through the ice, and that's their opinion, not mine. But yes.
I just have a question, probably for this woman right here. There's a stream out there, and there's I don't know whether I would consider it a permanent stream because it's still flowing just a little bit, but what is the difference between an intermittent stream and a permanent stream? Because I know the buffer area from
It's
that.
very different, right?
Yeah.
Can I answer that? So a perennial stream is one. First off, is one that the presumption is that the USGS topographic maps depict streams as either perennial or intermittent. And it's the way the mapping was set up, and so the regulations reference the mapping, and that's the first cut. But a stream that flows throughout the year could, that's not mapped as a perennial stream, could still be a perennial stream if it has a watershed area that's large enough to contribute flow throughout the year. And so there are calculations that you can do, that you can run to determine whether or not that flow would be expected throughout the year based on the size of the watershed that contributes to that stream and the geology of the watershed. Sand, gravel, and
So not the width of the stream, but
it
just
doesn't have anything to do with the width of the stream, actually.
It has just with the watershed.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah.
Any other butter comments while we're at it? Oh, sir?
Gary Stead, 48 Searle Street. There's, would the peer review person typically have access to their field notes as far as plant species and their hydraulic soil testing? Would he typically get those released to him and study those, or, you know, how much of this information that they've?
They're gonna look at all that information and their own.
Yeah, okay. And this falls within the town well resource district. Is that considered a resource line?
I don't believe it is, but it might be a.
You don't believe it affects it, or that it is?
No, I don't believe it is. The zone 2 and zone wellheads are.
One of the original maps at the planning board did show a good portion of it within the town's well resource district. I'm not sure which type.
I mean, I'll check into it.
We
and
can
the third party
verify,
review
we'll
will-
try and verify that.
Okay.
I think it's in a water resource district. I don't know if that's what you're thinking. It's definitely one portion that's in water resource. There's 80 different layers that go over this and different resources. They call them resources, they're not all
Right. Well,
necessarily.
as long as it's a factor that the peer review.
Yep, they will look at that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of the third-party review. You know, they're wetland scientists working for the commission. They're gonna review everything out there. They're gonna look at the lines, they'll look at all this information and give us an independent report. And many times, the lines do change based on those, that third-party review.
Could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Sorry.
It's okay, Mary. When you were saying that you had evidence of obligate species in that vernal pool,
Mhm.
so I'm assuming you were hearing wood frogs, et cetera.
Actually, they were very short.
Oh, great, nice.
Yeah.
Did you not hear or see anything in any of the other wetlands in that area?
I did not personally do that vernal pool inspection, so I can find out
Okay.
from the person who was working with me at the time. Yeah. But we're obviously cautious about, going on beyond the property limits that we have access to at the time, so. It's possible, so I'll check on that. And I would definitely want to review information that's been presented by other people, because we want to nail that down, so.
The way it's presented on your plan here, it looks very isolated. Because you haven't connected it off the property line, it does look very isolated, and so that there would be the potential for more vernal pool areas than you've actually identified there.
In the, which area are you referring to?
The whole thing, it looks
Oh.
very isolated, as though it were not connected to a larger water source that might, disqualify it as a vernal pool, so that's why I'm asking.
I think a site visit will be helpful, because, that particular one, that particular basin almost looks like it had been excavated like a borrow pit right inside the house.
But I mean, the whole sort of necklace of wetlands there, because you
Okay.
haven't connected them off the property line. It looks like there is the potential.
There's a stream system running through. there
Okay,
like that, yeah.
that's not in evidence that
Right.
I can see from here.
Right.
Okay.
This is a tough scale too, you have to remember, that's 45 acres at 100 scale. That's why we have the multiple sheets that sort of blow up each piece, so it's hard to sometimes look at it
I mean, how,
It looks really small.
how big is this, you know, quote-unquote vernal pool, I mean, in terms of square footage? Do you have any idea?
That is a good question.
And as you reference, scale-wise, it's kind of hard to get to.
By 30 or something, I mean, it's not hundreds of feet.
They don't have to be. They don't have to be.
Nope.
They'll go anywhere.
It's about 150 by 50. Yeah.
You could, if you identify yourself, you can speak again.
Lynn Roseline. I have been out on that property, probably like a bunch of us have been for over 20 years, so we know that property very, 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 very well. And that vernal pool right there is probably as big as if you go from this wall to that wall. It's about that long or even longer. Width-wise, it's probably from here, the width of this, maybe smaller than the width of this room.
Looks like about just shy of about 4,500 square feet or so, about a 30 by 35 or so.
Now, as I look at, you know, I've not been to the site, I can't tell what, you know, I'm looking at the topographic lines. I mean, is it a heavily wooded site? I mean, it's kind of just, okay, heavily wooded? And
There are trails through it, so it's easy to walk through, it's
Okay.
easy to see the wetland areas.
Now, are the wetlands, you have visible standing water in them, or are they?
Yeah.
They do, okay.
There is, like I said, there's a stream system that runs through. The boundary is pretty well defined in most areas, and it's a good, well-defined break and slope where the wetlands occur, so, and there's a distinct change in the vegetation, so it'll be pretty obvious when we're transitioning from the upland to the wetland areas.
Okay. Is there any further questions from commissioners? We have two hands up.
I'd just like
One-
to
go ahead.
confirm that Chris Comiskey, Old Jacobs Road, I'd like to confirm that you received a letter from me, and could it possibly be read for the record?
Did I?
I scanned it and emailed it out to everyone earlier today when I got it. So at 4:30, I stand corrected.
4:30. It's a little late for my email. And for the record, the commission did receive a letter from Chris Comiskey dated July 16th, 2013. This letter is regarding an ANRAD application and potential notice of intent filing off of Lisa Lane and Searle Street in Georgetown. My husband and I were contacted by resident abutters of the project to evaluate the ecological significance of the wetland within their property bounds and to determine whether the wetland at the rear of the property could be considered a vernal pool. I received training in vernal pool certification from the Massachusetts Audubon Sanctuary in Topsfield in 1999. My experience as a citizen naturalist includes certifying a number of vernal pools and documenting rare species throughout Georgetown to the State National Heritage and Endangered Species Program. My husband George is the president of the Parker River Clean Water Association and is involved in documenting the rare species of turtles in the area. On separate occasions, we were invited by Mrs. Donna Duncan of 46 Searle Street and abutting neighbors to view the isolated wetland on their property. Our first visit occurred on March 30th. We were drawn instantly to the sound of chorusing wood frogs coming from the wetland in question. Wood frogs are considered obligate to vernal pools, meaning species that live or breed only in vernal pools. We recorded the sounds of the chorus and have enclosed a copy to view and listen at your discretion. Our next visit occurred on Saturday, May 4th, when we were joined by Mrs. Duncan and several neighbors. At the wetland, we observed over 40 frogs and mole salamander egg masses. And new regulations require the presence of at least 5 egg masses for certification purposes. Mole salamanders, including spotted and blue spotted salamanders, are also obligate species. We have enclosed pictures of the varying egg masses. We also observed numerous facultative species, including bullfrogs, green frogs, caddisfly larvae. We did not observe any turtles or rare species during our visit. Based on our observations and evidence gathered, we consider this to be an active and important vernal pool deserving of the protection under the Georgetown Wetlands Bylaw. We recommend the Commission do everything in its power to limit intrusion into the surrounding area of this wetland and to mitigate so as not to fragment migration and dwelling habitat. Thank you.
And I'd like to point out that the one I'm mentioning is the one that Mr. Duncan pointed out, along with the roadway off of Searle Street. It's along that area, not the other vernal pool that they were talking about.
I think it's the G series and the C series. There was a map associated with that.
Could Mrs. Kaminsky point it out on the plan?
Would you mind pointing on the plan just
Yeah, please
for the
do.
commission to kind of get a visual?
Again, not having been out on the site, can orient me.
Duncan's one help me out on which part is your property, so I can point it out.
I'm sorry.
Over by the triangle.
This is this the wetland here? That's.
This is where you were. This is my property, the dwelling thing here.
So this,
So you were
this
here.
part here, which is going into the property, that is a very active certified.
Is that the one you mentioned in your letter?
Yes, that's the
Okay.
one I'm
Okay.
talking about. I'm not talking about the one that they mentioned as a vernal pool. This is one, by the, I think the roadway is coming in somewhere along this area, and this is the vernal pool jutting out into their property. We were on the Duncan's property, very, very active vernal.
Thank you. If you could, Steve, if you could make sure this gets into the official record of the file.
So, Susan Stead, 48 Searle Street. So my question is, I know they've identified some wetlands, but that vernal pool that we're talking about is within 100 feet of their proposed roadway. So why wouldn't that have been identified by you when you guys went out there?
That will be part of the peer review process.
That's what we're here to actually.
Oh, I understand
determine.
that,
Yeah.
but I mean, it just seems like they identified one, but not the other.
I mean,
And
they're
it's part of
wetland
the
scientists. It's a judgment call based on their professional experience when they were out there.
And that's really why we do third party, because you know there sometimes are differences based on the particular scientist. Not all will agree 100%. I mean, there obviously it's a science, but you know it sometimes there is some difference in you know what interpretation, and that's really why we do a third party.
Well, it's just, that's a really important one, I guess, so it's just, you know, that's the whole road, so I guess that's my concern, that also, like a lot of other people in this room, we've been walking these woods for years, we know where the water flows, we know the waters are, so the first time we saw the plan and see the road coming through, we all knew that was a vernal pool, so that's raised
Well, you know,
everybody's red flags, so.
We assess all the data. We look
I
at what
understand
they
that.
present us. We look at what our third
I
party
understand
presents,
that.
and also the information you provided. That's really why we give you the venue to come here and talk with us and present us with information. It's all part of the record. It's all part of the process.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bill? If there are no further questions at this point from commissioners or anyone in the public, I would entertain a motion to continue.
Mr. Chair.
Again, once
I'm just
we
trying to get a feel for
once
how
we
we're
get our
going to
third
continue
party
to-
review, we'll have
Okay.
a lot more information and questions and such to evaluate the property and also do a site walk out there.
Do you want to do it for next month, or is that a little tight?
I think that would be okay.
If you're not ready, just let us know. We can continue it
Yeah.
right away, so it's not a big deal.
Mr. Chairman, would it be okay to tentatively schedule a site visit, maybe like on a Saturday before that meeting?
I think we tend to do it after the site inspections, but before.
We do it after the third party review.
Third party review.
That's right,
Yeah.
that's what I'm describing.
So we have all the data in front of us and we can walk out there and, you know, compare.
I'm hoping that we can get the peer review scheduled within the next 2 weeks. You know, it's a 1 day.
And that's
thing,
enough,
so,
and that's enough time for the engineer to pick up if there's any new flags presented,
Absolutely.
get paperwork in.
We have really good survey control on site, and if there are any additional flags or any additional resources that need to be located by survey, we can certainly.
So we'll do it to next month, and if we're not ready, we'll bounce it from there.
So August 15th?
It's a 7:15.
We're already,
You already have 1 minute.
Yeah,
yeah,
we do.
we're up to
But it's
8:15.
7:30.
No, wait, 7:50. Nope, 8:06.
No, you don't have anything at 7:15.
I was gonna do it early just because of the quantity of butters we have here.
Okay. yeah.
The earliest one I have right now is 7:30.
Yep.
So do it like 7 o'clock, 7:15, so we can clear the room faster.
Would it be okay, Mr. Chairman, to tentatively schedule a site visit maybe on the 10th before that? Maybe on a Saturday, or?
August 10th?
Is that weekend day typically at days?
Well,
Yeah,
we.
Size of the lot, I'd say, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, see, you know, depending on the size, sometimes we'll do them later in the day, but if it's a big project, sometimes that presents a problem. Well, it seems like we probably could schedule a
We're
site
gonna
walk.
schedule a meeting anyway for the 15th, right?
Yeah,
Well-
7 or 7:15, 7:10.
No, I mean, actually, I'd want, if I don't have my
Peer review.
peer review, you know, if I've got the peer review, then I can do that.
Mhm.
If I don't, then there's no point in doing it. So if we have some good assurances that I can get the peer review by that point,
I don't see why not.
okay. Anyone want to make a motion to re-amend the motion to have the site walk on August 10th?
You make that, Mary? Oh,
No, but I mean, assuming that we will come to terms with the peer review, that anyone can.
Whatever the wish of the commission, if you feel that Mary, it's important to have Mary there, you know, we can.
Yeah,
schedule
August
it another
15th.
time.
Oh,
Well, I mean,
September
how essential
26th.
is it that it get done at that point?
I was just thinking before the meeting on the 15th, if there's an opportunity to have a site visit, we might be able to and have a fruitful, discussion again on the 15th.
I think it'd be important to have a wetland scientist there versus just a tour.
It can be is Sunday the 11th available?
Sunday. We did one on Sunday.
I don't think we've ever done one on Sunday. Doesn't mean we can't. I'm busy, but you guys can do it.
Oh, you're going.
We need to be there. Yeah, we need to be there.
I can do that.
Sunday, the 11th.
You can make that?
I don't know.
It's early,
Hmm? Well, what's the commission's pleasure?
Okay with that. I'm okay with the Sunday.
I'm fine with that.
Early.
Yeah.
Early?
Early. Well, not afternoon.
0500?
4:30?
Not that early.
I definitely can't make it if you do it at 4:30.
Even 8-ish would be good. Before the bugs are in. Sorry, Carl.
When aren't the bugs out?
So August 11th at 8 o'clock, is that what I heard?
No.
9 o'clock.
John is saying 9. Okay, 9?
That's
Is that okay,
noon.
Carl? 9? Can you
9.
get out by 9?
9
After your
is
wild
okay.
Saturday night? Okay.
So
Wanna
if we
re-
can't make it then.
If you can't make it then, I can take you out another time at your.
Pleasure.
Want
All right.
to re-amend your motion?
I'll make a motion to hold a site walk for the GCC 2013-14 DEP 161-0765 for rear Lisa Lane at 9 o'clock on Sunday, August 11th.
We have a motion been seconded to conduct a site walk for Lisa Lane on August 11th, Sunday at 9 a.m. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining.
Thank you very much.
And I'll entertain a motion, we already continued, okay, so fine.
We just didn't
No,
make the
we
motion.
didn't.
We talked about it, so we need to make a
dates. We have
motion
August 15th.
to
at
continue.
7 or 7:15. John made the original motion, I think, but we never actually nailed the date.
Right.
So is there a second for that? There was a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, seconded to continue to August 15th at 7:15 PM. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed, all abstaining.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The lady has a
Technically, the hearing is closed, but I can talk, I mean, we might take a break because it's been going so long. I can talk offline about your question.
Yeah, just from a protocol, nobody's really supposed to ask us questions once we're in the middle of a motion deliberation. That includes technically the consultant, so that's kind of in that judge mode, we kind of close everything off at that point.
You get like 5-minute break just to.
That's fine.
Keep them clear, because it's often hard to hear anyways.
We will take a 5-minute recess. Thank you.
So when you act up,
It's a bleep.
Okay, the commission's July 18th meeting, the Conservation Commission is back in session. And it being on or after 8 p.m., I'm going to open a new notice of intent for 64 through 74 East Main Street. And that's a parking lot improvement, stormwater management improvement, septic system improvements, and riverfront area restoration activities. And if I could have the applicant and a consultant, and if you could identify yourself again for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Chris Sparadis. I'm a registered professional engineer and principal of the Engineering and Survey Office of Williams and Sparadis in Middleton. We are here this evening representing the owner of Georgetown Plaza with the street address of 64 to 74 East Main Street, Mistra Realty Trust. Mr. Constantine Scrivanos is the trustee of the trust, and representing Mr. Scrivanos is with us here this evening is a senior real estate manager, Ms. Rosanna Francis, and the wetland scientist that we use to help us identify the wetland resources on the property is also here to answer questions if needed, Mary Rimmer.
And do we have the green cards?
We do.
Okay, why don't you run us through this project?
Okay. This one is pretty complicated because it's an existing site that's been in the town for many years. So just some quick background, and I'm going to just stand up and point at the plan as I'm going. The first plan that we've got colored up is the existing conditions plan. Everyone is familiar with Georgetown Plaza along East Main Street. The town's assessor's map, it's shown on map 11A as lot 85. The lot area extends from the frontage along East Main Street and then out to the rear where the eastern property boundary is formed by Penn Brook, and then a property boundary here. When you add it all up, we have approximately 116,000 square feet, or about 2.6 acres or so.
I'm sorry. Is this the Crosby's Plaza?
no.
No, it's not. It's
Georgetown Builders.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Gotcha. That's why it's East Main
Oh.
Street. I'm in completely the
I thought it
wrong
was
area
Builders.
of town. Okay,
So,
thank
so,
you.
Yeah, so here's the center of
Gotcha.
town, 133. It's right just south of Winter Street.
I understand now.
Right, so
Thank you.
everybody- Yeah,
You didn't
sure.
recognize the address?
I was like, why did they put Crosby's on East Main Street? Okay.
And obviously, right across Penn Brook is the football field over at the high school. So, moving on, the most important items on the property, the wetland resources. And we have Penn Brook that runs through our site, as I said, forming our eastern boundary. And we know that Penn Brook is a perennial stream, and we've shown it the limit of the bank. Mary hung some riverfront flags along the top of the bank. In a certain area, we have also a BBW that's coincident with the wetland line. You'll see a green line right next to the blue line here. But the riverfront area extends 200 feet away from the top of the bank. And we have it shown here in this location here. So much of the site,
The 200 foot.
the 200 foot, much of the site is within the riverfront area. Much of the riverfront area is previously developed or disturbed in some shape or form. Just to give you an idea, total riverfront area on the property is just over 86,000 square feet, and about 54,200 square feet or so is currently has improvements or disturbances of one type or another. We also have a floodplain associated with Penn Brook that's identified on the latest flood insurance rate map as elevation 80. It also coincides with the town's floodplain district. Once you cross East Main Street along this section of Penn Brook, the floodplain district is coincident with the flood insurance rate map. We have it highlighted in a darker line as elevation 80, and there is no proposed activity down in that area. Then we have extending beyond the bank of the perennial stream, we have a series of BVW flags that Mary hung that run along this green line here. And you'll notice that that we've highlighted an area here with a couple of outlets. Almost looks like a stick figure, right? Somebody lying down. But this is a small area that does collect water. It was a former or an old stormwater management area that collects some water. Back in November of 2012, we located the limits of that water, and that's what's outlined here in the blue line. There's a little spillway here. And then there are a couple of fingers, if you will, or treatment swales that run in a couple of different directions away from there. But the vegetation and the soils in this area now are, consist of enough wetland indicators that the wetland line kind of goes around that area now. Okay, so additional existing conditions on the site within the riverfront area and the 100-foot buffer zone, which we've shown in this dark green line, just to be consistent with the wetland line. The property has a pretty good sized building with several tenants. The main parking field is out front here. It has about 62 parking spaces or so. And the paved part of the parking area extends down this paved driveway until you get to about right here behind the building, and it changes to gravel. This is a mass of gravel drive that comes around like this before coming back into the parking area, which is paved. Over to the north is the existing leaching area for the septic system, and you can see that a portion of it is within the 100-foot buffer zone. Back when the septic system was last updated or improved, dates back to the 90s, those plans did show a new leaching area outside the 100-foot buffer zone, the way the wetland resources were delineated at that time. But today, this is what we're looking at. And there are a series of septic tanks that lead to a primary pump chamber that pumps wastewater to a distribution box. And then from the distribution box, it flows by gravity into the...
So the wetlands have changed and grown since this was done?
Yeah.
Or they may not have been accurately depicted.
Hard to tell which one. When we got the flags back and we plotted them, and I noticed that was the first thing I noticed when I plotted them up, that they were a lot different than some previous work. Mary and I did go out and take a look at it, and it's this sort of area here that creates that. There really was no question. I'm not a wetland scientist, but I did question Mary about it. We went out and took a second look at it, and it's definitely got
larger.
Well, we've seen quite a bit of that.
Right. So, what Mr. Scrivanos is proposing to do is to make some improvements on the site, and we've divided them into 4 categories: parking lot improvements, stormwater management improvements, the septic system improvements, and some riverfront restoration. So I'll talk about the parking lot improvements first. I'm going to flip plans. I'm going to leave this open like this, so that at least we can see that. And I'll show you our proposed topographic plan. There's quite a bit going on, but I'll go through it. So the parking lot improvements. What Mr. Scrivanos is proposing to do is to rip up or eliminate about 2,000 square feet of pavement in this area here, and proposes to install pervious pavement. We have a typical cross-section of what that pervious pavement cross-section will look like, starting from about the end of the building here, around, you can see it here in this lighter gray color, and run pervious pavement all the way around until you get outside the 100-foot buffer zone to the BVW and outside of the riverfront area. That's one of the proposed changes that he would like to make.
How close is this actually the closest part of the pervious pavement to actually the resource?
Sure, I can pull out my scale, but what we use as a guide is the existing limit of the gravel, if you will, in the existing condition, so that we weren't extending in that direction. We're also maintaining a sort of a one-way width, so we've narrowed, if you will, the limit of this area that people can drive over using this pervious pavement. And in the process, Mr. Scrivanos would like to create some parking areas or parking spaces behind the building for employees primarily of the building. In addition, Mr. Scrivanos proposes to create a new parking field in this area of the property, a portion of which falls within the buffer zone. Together with the few parking spaces that can be sort of outlined in the back, and this new parking field here, he's proposing to increase the available parking on the site for the building from 62 parking spaces to 98. So an increase of 36 parking spaces. That's going to be again accessed, if you will. This new parking field accessed via a two-way driveway here. It is a dead-end parking field with pedestrian access via a set of stairs that will allow people to come across and access the building at this location. And the primary purpose, again, for this parking field and some of the parking spaces that we're proposing in the rear of the building is to sort of direct employees, folks that work at this facility, to the rear and to this parking field to open up more parking for customers, because it does get congested from time to time with customers in the main parking field. The other reason for the creation of this pervious pavement as opposed to gravel, the gravel has been very difficult to maintain over time. Lots of potholes and ruts form over time. It's a constant maintenance issue, which Mr. Scrivanos does keep up with. But as a gravel driveway, we've also noticed that some of that gravel, in that process of these potholes being created in the ruts, some of those sediments have washed towards the river and towards the wetland resources through the years in this direction. And by using the pervious pavement to stabilize that area, we're hoping to achieve several goals that I'll go into a little bit more detail when I talk about the stormwater management aspects of these improvements. The pervious pavement is going to allow us to provide a significant improvement in stormwater treatment and stormwater infiltration, and also in detention on a site that really doesn't have a lot in terms of best management practices or stormwater management areas between the existing improvements and the wetland resources, being the wetland and, of course, most importantly, Penn Brook. And so this pervious pavement area is going to allow us to provide for some storage of rainwater as the areas that are tributary to it come across it. So it'll have the ability to hold water in the typical cross-section, which has many layers, as I'm sure the Commission is familiar with. And those coarse fragment layers allow us to store quite a bit of rainwater in between storms. It also provides for infiltration after running through that pervious pavement, of course. And in addition to that, does provide treatment. So it's sort of a triple effect for the pervious pavement surface. And as you see going through our stormwater management calculations in our drainage study, we were able to show through our calculations that this area has the ability to not only hold back but treat and infiltrate more than the requisite amount that's identified in DEP's stormwater management.
I obviously understand it's a pre-existing site, but the pretty much proposal is maximizing that property. I mean, there's not much left that isn't going to have some sort of structure or modification.
Well, moving on to the stormwater management, what we've tried to do with selecting the BMPs that we've selected, they're really structureless. It's really, we're talking about the key word, if you will, is low impact development through the use of the pervious pavement. And beyond the pervious pavement, what we're proposing is a swale-like feature that we're referring to in our stormwater management form and calculations as a biofilter. And so in some of the larger storm events, when the capacity of the pervious pavement is exceeded, this area will bleed and or overflow over the surface into this biofilter area here that will be vegetated using a series of wetland seed mix and a combination of high bush blueberry shrubs and summer sweet shrubs that are outlined on the landscaping plan. And so there's an additional level of treatment and attention provided by this swale-like feature. And so it's relatively flat, but it does have a slope that heads in this direction here and then in this direction here, sort of directing it to a spillway that will then continue going towards that existing stormwater management area that I pointed out that's inside the limits of the wetland now. The combination of the pervious pavement and the biofilter brings us above 80% treatment of TSS, more than the requisite amount of infiltration, and really without using formal structures like some catch basin or drain manholes or subsurface disposal areas for infiltration purposes. Part of that is because the groundwater on this site is relatively high. We have estimated seasonal high groundwater about 36 inches or so, 36 to 40 inches below the surface. And so in a traditional parking lot setting like this, what we try to we normally like to use Caltech chambers or subsurface chambers to help provide storage and infiltration, but we really can't get high enough above the groundwater surface given the existing elevation of the building and the facility. What we propose after these improvements, the stormwater improvements, especially the biofilter here, are constructed and the plantings are made, Mr. Scribanos would like to construct a 6-foot-high stockade fence along the edge of the pervious pavement to limit access and litter from going into the areas that are closest to the BVW and Penn Brook, which leads us to some of the riverfront restoration activities that we'd like to do out here. And walking the BVW line, we've noticed some dumping in various locations, some of it within the wetland. And what we'd like to do together with your agent's help, with Steve's help, is to identify some areas, some of those things that really should be removed, and propose a seeding plan, whether it's a wetland seed mix or a shrub, depending on, after you pull out some of this material, how disturbed that area is, how it can be best restored, so that once the fence goes up, we hope to limit the access of people and that littering or dumping of deleterious materials in that area.
You're going to have more people back there with more parking, so I would anticipate more littering.
Well, there is going to be littering. It'll be on our side of the fence, let's say, and so that'll be something that we can control without allowing it to migrate, if you will, beyond that fence line toward the wetland or Penn Brook.
What kind of dumping is it? I mean, is it stuff from the stores, or is it stuff from
It's like some
people
the landscaping clippings, all the grass clippings, some concrete.
from people maintaining the buildings around
Yeah,
there?
maintain the lawns that are there.
Something certainly under their control.
Some concrete, trash, just
There's
regular
older
trash.
stuff there too.
Yeah, there is older stuff too.
Older fill, yeah.
And the landscapers love to put their grass clippings in the direction of the wetlands because it's the lowest spot.
The landscapers that are working on that side, or just
No,
random
yeah,
landscapers?
yeah. It's not someone backing up their truck and dumping it.
It's the people working
2 or
on the
3 whoever
side.
loads, yeah. I believe so.
The thing that strikes me about putting a fence up is then how are you gonna do any maintenance of your bioswale and your...
Right, so that fence, although we didn't talk about it yet, will have a gate, that's locked, so that the folks who are in charge of the facility can do exactly what you just said, access that back area and just keep an eye on it from time to time. Because in our operation and maintenance plan, especially the pervious pavement, it's very intensive
maintenance.
O&M, especially with that, the requirement for backing that surface periodically. That's all outlined in our operation and maintenance plan. But not only that, but also that biofilter. Finally, and I don't want to take up much more of your time, we are proposing to move the leaching area out of the buffer zone. And you can see or the existing condition shows a rectangular leaching area there. We're proposing to move the leaching area closer to the front of the property. And as part of the proposed improvements for the building.
You're enlarging it, correct?
We are, in order to support additional or new tenants, to give Mr. Scrivanos the ability to support a more wider variety, if you will, of tenants, increasing the septic flow on the site from approximately 1,500 gallon per day system to a 2,700 gallon per day system. In this case, because we're going to be exceeding that 2,000 gallon per day threshold, we would be required to have a pressure dosed system, which is a more efficient way of dosing a leaching area and should extend the life of the leaching area itself as well. So that's, in a nutshell. I know I talked a lot about a lot of different things, but those are the 4 categories of things that Mr. Scrivanos would really like to do. We're also going to be appearing before the Zoning Board of Appeals.
So this is just for parking for employees. It's not a throughway or anything of that nature.
That's right. This is sort of a dead end. It's a dead end parking field here, and then striping some spaces in the back of the building to take advantage of the access points that already exist in the back of the building.
Where's the snow storage location as marked on the plan?
So snow storage is not marked on the current plan. So I'm going to start make some notes.
Also, the roof drains aren't leading to anywhere except pavement or erosion, just plain dirt. It might be nice to improve the stormwater as far as the roof drains going someplace other than sheet flowing into the roof. And also, just more to note, the green is marking disturbed area. Makes it look like grass and pretty and nice. It's actually not like that. Just, I'm hoping you guys can do a site walk to get a better feel for it. And it kind of makes it look like it's all mowed lawn. It's not. It just happens to be the color that they chose, which is very reasonable. But just to let you know, visually, it's different on property.
It's tough looking back there.
It's pretty much compacted. There's no. They show kind of what's pervious, what's not. All the green is pretty much impervious. It's compacted dirt. There's a little bit there, but most of it's sheet flowing off. Again, if you do a site visit, you'll definitely see that. But it's a little, not intentionally deceitful. It's just, it gives you the appearance of it being nice, lush grass, and it's not that.
In the proposed condition, Mr. Scrivanos does want to
make improvements,
to turn that area that's sort of somewhere in between, like Steve said, impervious and some vegetation to something that can be tilled and prepared properly, so that will also promote some additional infiltration. There are various locations. All of the roof runoff does come out onto the ground at various locations, and in the back there are gravel pads at the downspout locations. Some of the other ones do come out close to the paved surface, though. Just to give you an idea about the site, the soils underneath here in the floodplain generally and broken. The soils are very, very sandy on site. We've done additional test holes just to figure out if we could support a septic system in the reserve area, and we sent out samples to the lab because we're going to have to determine proper groundwater bounding calculations, and we have to send out to the lab for textural analysis. It's the first sample I've ever sent out to a lab on our samples that came back pure sand on the textural triangle, so it's pretty common here.
I would propose if we were doing a site walk on the 11th?
Sunday.
Probably to swing by there also.
I'll grab a cup of coffee and walk around.
Yeah.
Well, probably not many people have walked out back before. I think most people have been in the front part of the plaza.
So we're talking August 11th. So we're at 9. It's a pretty big site.
But this or the other?
The other one.
Yeah.
So we have a 9 o'clock already.
We could do this one at 8. We could get our coffee at 8.
Yes.
Well,
you could
and
buy our coffee
then-
for us.
Put it this way,
I'll buy
this is,
coffee.
This is a lot more well-defined.
Yes.
The other one, If you wanna walk the line, it's gonna take a little bit longer. Typically, what we do is we walk the main paths and jump off to hit the wetlands, like the vernal pool or the areas that
This
we're
is,
curious
this is
about.
also one that you could do an after-work type of thing, because it's
It
much
is,
smaller.
right.
I mean,
It is, yeah,
easy to
definitely.
get
It's
to.
definitely,
Quickie.
it's a quickie.
Compared to the 47A.
The other one could be a quickie. We've done large site walks. We just walk the perimeter and jump off, hit a few wetlands and come back. The other one's not a 6-hour site walk. Depends how you guys wanna handle it. So, it's your call.
Yeah, I could do an after-work one too. I wouldn't have a problem with a spot like that. I mean, there's plenty of light.
Wanna do it next
We're not
Thursday?
bushwhacking.
Yeah, we often try to keep them on Thursdays. It seems
Just
like
because
Thursdays work
people
for
are focused on that schedule, they're part of the schedule.
Yeah, so we could do a week from today.
You can see most everything from the edge of the gravel driveway.
I'll come out with you another time.
Good excuse for a coffee. Yeah.
It was John's fault. Sunday's only a few days. I usually don't have to work for somebody.
Yeah, how about around the house? Sidewalk, what do we want? Thursday, next Thursday?
Next Thursday.
25th?
Make a motion for sidewalk, 25th at
You just tell me.
6:30 maybe.
6:30?
Is that okay if you, Mayor?
Occasionally I have to eat.
You can have a bagel, get coffee for dinner.
Yeah, 6:30 makes sense.
Yep, make a motion for sidewalk, 6:30, August.
What is it, July 25th?
July 25th.
July 25th.
Any second
Is
on
there a
that?
second?
Second.
The motion's been seconded to conduct a site walk for 64-74 East Main Street, July 25th at 6:30 PM. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? Motion carries. Are there
Losing Laura.
any more about questions? I want to open it up to any residents if they.
I have a question.
Just if you.
I live next
Ma'am,
door.
if you could just identify yourself for the record, please.
Sorry. Cynthia Hosafel, 60 East Main Street.
Thank you.
My question is, I'm the neighbor. The parking is going on top of the leaching field?
That's correct.
Really?
That's correct.
How high is the leaching field gonna be?
So above the existing parking lot, which is it varies in grade level. Let's say elevation 83. It's going to be 6 to 6 feet or so above the parking area.
So it's not gonna be as high as it is now?
It's going to be as high as it is now, about a foot higher.
Well, the leaching field next door is higher than 6 feet.
It's possible that it's that high from your side. Okay, I was describing it from the park.
Well, even when I
lot.
walk by there, the bricks, it's much taller than I am.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Hosafel, is it on when you're walking along
No,
your
when I walk
property?
in between the building and the leaching field,
Sure, so that retaining wall is not,
I was gonna say 3.5.
yeah,
I've
it's
sat-
not,
I've
it's
jumped
not,
up and sat on it.
it's
I
not
can't
more than
jump that
4
high.
feet high. So, but it is gonna be about a foot higher than it is today.
so what's gonna protect on the other side towards our house,
Sure, so, there's gonna be a concrete retaining wall.
which there is there now?
That's right, that's
Is that gonna change?
It's
You're
just
gonna put a
it's just
different
gonna be-
retaining wall?
That's correct. It's going to be a brand new retaining wall. It's going to be about a foot higher than the one is today, and that's in
Is
order
that
for us-
allowed?
It is, and when you don't have enough room, similar to the existing leaching area, to be able to grade out your slope more shallow, the DP does allow you to put up a retaining wall and then a liner on the inside to protect.
Well, you
any
got trees,
wastewater.
you got stuff growing all there now, so, okay, and so it's gonna come down in a slope?
The retaining wall is going to
Yeah,
be
no,
vertical?
no.
Okay.
The whole thing's
No,
gonna
it
come
has to
down
be
in a
flat.
slant?
So, the parking field itself is
Yeah.
gonna be relatively flat. It's gonna have a slight pitch towards the back of the property. But it has to be relatively flat for the vehicles.
Did you say you've taken this to the ZBA or the planning board already?
We're in the process of filling out applications. We've been meeting informally with staff over the last several months to make sure that we get all of our eggs in a row. And we're also in the process of reviewing previous decisions, trying to make sure if there are any outstanding items, trying to clean things up a little bit. So we will be appearing before the ZBA. I think the filing deadline is the 29th. They have a long lead time. We won't be appearing before the ZBA until September 3rd. And then as part of that process, we'll have site plan review as well with the planning board.
Go ahead.
I'm Rick Holzaffel, Cindy's husband. I'm also the guy that pumps the septic tanks out there. I own the septic business.
I think we spoke on the phone before.
And I mean, the leaching field where it is now, when the kids cut through from the high school, they're throwing stuff in our backyard. We used to have a pool there, and I mean, it's up high. Now you're gonna make it higher, and we're gonna have cars parked on top of that. I mean,
Facing our property.
we have a fence now that already fell down and they haven't fixed it. I don't understand why they're not moving the leaching field along the front of the property and using that area. I could see using that area for parking without having that raised system right there.
We took a look at various options for the leaching area. The problem that we have is twofold. We're sort of cursed with good soils in some ways, because once you have a perk rate with SAMs that's less than 2 minutes per inch, you have to have a separation from estimated seasonal high groundwater of 5 feet from that elevation up to the bottom of your septic system. And now that we're going to be going up above 2,000 gallons a day, we're also required to incorporate the potential mounding effect of wastewater as it's trickling down through the soil, which for a septic system of this size, it's going to be about another foot. So we're limited as to where we can put it grade-wise, and so that's why we have to tuck it over to the side, because it would impact the access to the site. We'd have to close off this access if we were to shift it, because the grade would have to come up so high. We did do a couple of concepts looking at something like that. The other problem that causes is, in order for us to slope it, we're going to be directing runoff. We can't slope it fast enough and gradual enough to have parking spaces and not impact this corner of the building with the grading. And so, after several iterations, as Rosanna can attest to, this seems to be, we've been at it for several months. And this seems
Just to clarify, the existing system is not in failure, correct?
No, it's my understanding that it's operating properly. We have not done a Title V report, but as part of these improvements, one of the first things we realized is that bleaching area is within 100 feet of the wetland, and if we're looking at making Mr. Scrivanos, giving him the ability to entertain different types of tenants by increasing the flow, there's no way we can keep it where it was. We have to pull it. It's going to be new flow, which means new construction. We have to pull that out of the buffer zone.
Yeah, we wouldn't let you put it back there, anyway.
Right.
Go ahead, sir.
Are you planning on keeping all the septic tanks in the same place?
We are in the process of evaluating the tanks. We know that some of them are going to have to be replaced, and so as part of that effort, we're also trying to pull those components as far away from the wetland resources.
But you're going to keep them
as well.
in the back of the building?
We're working on it still.
I mean, I suggested when they did the plaza over the first time that all the tanks should be in the parking lot. I mean, that whole back road floods, and now you're talking about putting a berm. I assume when you said your little buffer zone there.
So this is not a berm. It's designed to sheet flow, if you will, across this spur pavement. some of the water will infiltrate into this pervious pavement, and then just sheet flow.
Pembroke
Well,
flow.
is it sheet, is this, you're talking about sheet flow, and he's talking about probably the river flooding.
Yes.
The
and
river
actually
floods
flowing
right up
the other direction.
the whole parking lot, and then the septic tanks included are underwater at times. And when the pump fails, nobody goes back there now, and I don't get called for 3 days and the water's flowing out into the brook. I mean, I just don't think it's smart to keep the septic tanks so close to the brook when we all know that it already comes up. We got beavers, we have floods, and now we're gonna have more drainage going in from the improvements to Pembroke School.
No, the
You
Winter
looked
Street,
into
on our
a zero
street, School Street.
discharge system?
A zero discharge system for wastewater, or?
Yeah, for wastewater.
We have not.
It might be worth looking into.
And by zero discharge, I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
I'm Lilibeth Weiss. You could, I think New England Biotech has a zero discharge system. There's a few around. I know David Del Porta does work with those.
Maybe some options for moving all the tanks and components out front. That really does make.
Yeah, I understand that.
You're gonna have pavement over them anyway.
I beg your pardon?
You're gonna have pavement over them anyway, where they are now, what we're proposing, or out front. Right, correct?
It could be either or. I guess some of them will be in the grass areas, and some of them, will be under pavement. All the construction, of course, of any tank that's put in the ground, it has to be watertight construction in accordance with Title V. So that's something that's required, by Title V anyway.
One of the
Occasionally we see them fail.
Right.
They don't always do what they're supposed to.
One of the final tanks before, I don't know if it was the pump chamber, I think it's the tank before that, they told me when they put it in, they had to pour I don't know how thick a base and set the tank on that base. And they told me never empty the tank because they're afraid it could pop out of the ground. And I mean, I know you did perk tests and everything else, and 36 inches to water, I think is, I hit water at 2 feet in my yard, right next door.
I think as you approach the back of the building, I think it's even closer to the surface.
Yeah.
Those are our test holes out in the front, up front.
I mean, our big problem is having headlights shining over the fence into our yard, and
Which is not what I know you people are talking about tonight, but.
yeah, I know it has nothing to do with conservation, but putting a parking lot on top of the leaching field that high up, I just can't.
One of the things that'll have to be done because of I think the retaining wall in the final analysis may be higher than 4 feet. And so it'll require a fence to meet the building code, and that's something, I know screening isn't really a consideration, especially outside the buffer zone. But that's certainly something that we're gonna be looking at to provide along that property line.
Are there any other, your impervious kind of stops often in the, you kind of pick the line where the buffer is, and impervious kind of stops there. Regarding kind of stormwater, there's some expectation to make improvements, not just in the areas that you're disturbing, but improvements in general. I consider kind of roof drains and stuff like that. Is there anything that you've looked at? I mean, outside the buffer, the whole front of this is mostly in the buffer. We're kind of focusing on the back. Why not make the entire parking lot pervious? I mean, the area floods, so doing some rain gardens or some low impact development improvements to the front. Because I've heard it's been worse. Flooding comes almost out to the main street. Everything's being covered and described in the back. Any improvements that you guys would come up with for the front area, just as mitigation almost, because
it's the whole thing is a
there's a lot of
waiver.
taking in the back. There's not much mitigation being given. What's the incentive from an environmental standpoint to allow these improvements? It's really making it more usable for you guys, and it's not environmentally more friendly. Where are the improvements back to the environment?
Right. So the improvements that we're proposing as part of our design include the pervious pavement. Because right now there's no detention on the site. And so this mass of pervious pavement through its cross-section is providing storage.
Mm-hmm.
It's providing for treatment as the stormwater is flowing through the various layers, and it provides for infiltration, where those things don't occur, on that compacted surface today. We've eliminated about 2,000 square feet of pavement here to make it more sort of homogeneous. It's very expensive to install pervious pavement, and so along those lines, in addition to the pervious pavement, this biofilter swale-like feature is also an improvement that allows us to bring up, all of the areas that are tributary to the rear of the building. We're able to now prove, through our stormwater management form, that we're able to meet each one of the DEP stormwater standards, all the way from.
Is this going to do anything to resolve the flooding issue?
Well, we can't control flooding that comes up from Penn Brook.
Well, you can do what FEMA says, try not to build in floodplains and flood areas. That's what that costs this country billions of dollars every year.
Right.
That's what they recommend.
I do agree with you, Mr. Chairman. When we look at a site, we sort of have to play. There are certain parameters, and we know that the flood insurance rate maps tell us what elevation the 100-year, that 7-inch rainfall comes up to, that 1% rainfall, and that elevation is elevation 80. We're not proposing any activity below that elevation, and that elevation also coincides with the town's floodplain district determination, which is usually, I would say in general, a little bit more strict than FEMA in a lot of areas along Penn Brook, a lot higher, if you will. Although there may be periodic events that that cause Penn Brook to flood, and I don't know the reasons why, but we're definitely staying out of that resource area with these improvements.
And the existing stormwater area, that's shown as the existing and the proposed. You're not proposing any work in there.
That's right.
Now, that was 1999 it was installed? Did I hear that earlier, or am I?
In here.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly when it was installed.
Okay, but
it looks like it was a feature that was proposed on an older plan.
Okay. So you're not proposing, I mean, I can't imagine that's functioning the way that it was designed to if it hasn't been maintained for the past X years. You kind of show it as if it's a functioning system, but we don't see any details. My memory of that is you can barely tell the difference left or right 20 feet. I don't think it really is a very functioning system.
So what we did when we came out here and after Mary hung her flags and I came out and we did our survey, I looked at it on the plan. I came out and I walked into this area and I'm like, geez, this looks like a stormwater management area with a spillway and treatment swales. And so what we did is we had our field crew come back out. I had them come back out after we flagged the wetlands, and we did a detailed microtopography of this entire area. You can see that it's pelted with a lot of spot shots so that I could accurately depict it. It is odd looking, but when you go onto the ground, and we'll see it at the site visit, it does do what the plan shows, and that is, this is a sort of a plunge pool sump, and then it spills over into a swale-like feature, and then the swale branches out into two legs, and then it dead ends. So these swales, in theory, would fill up before overflowing, and so it does. I don't know exactly how it was designed, but it seems to be doing something, and so we thought it made the most sense to direct our.
Yeah, it's a logical spot. I feel like we're trying to design this current stormwater, improve it, and just showing an area that it wasn't really designed. It's a little sump with an outflow, isn't very high tech, and I know low impact development can be very simple, but I just want to more draw the commission's attention that that's not really a formally designed storm feature, although it's being labeled that. We don't, it's a sump with an outflow, and if we want to call it that, but I just don't want you to be confused that there's some engineering that went into that. That's an existing, we don't know what went into it, Again, it's a hole with two outflows, which might be fine, but given we don't really know how much stormwater, and I guess the third-party reviewing engineer will kind of help figure out how much water is hitting that area. But if it's not really clear what it is, it's hard to show engineering numbers to say this can mitigate some of the stormwater coming off the property.
It brings up a good point. I assume some point a third party.
Yeah,
Not using it at all.
that's the thing. I haven't reviewed it.
Yeah,
I'm sure that
he's
will
not
be
using
shown.
it at all for
Yeah.
that purpose.
But it's an outflow.
It's just an additional feature.
Yeah.
And just, if I could just point out two things. One, that right now the gravel parking lot just discharges directly sheet flow into it,
And
sediment,
all across the
everything.
whole area, too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And secondly, that this area was not shown as wetland on the old plan. It was actually supposedly constructed in an upland, but it doesn't exist that way.
And I couldn't tell if you were using it in your calculations. I'm just more pointing it out because when we see things like that, we think that you guys designed it in. And
Right.
that's not the case in this
So
situation.
in general, when we approach our stormwater management calculations, when we're on a property that has a wetland line, we like to use that as sort of the edge of
Mhm.
comparison. And so that's what we did here, existing and proposed. And so in this case, it just happens that, this area, the sump and the swales are below the wetland line. So our edge of comparison is before that. So we're not taking any credit or, counting anything as part of that. But logically, it just seemed to make sense that that's.
It's already
Well, yeah,
disturbed.
it's already disturbed, obviously, yeah. I have no problem. I just want to clarify.
There was a question out in the audience?
Yeah, I'm Sharon Freeman from 5080 Main Street, so I live on the other side of the Zuckles. I have two questions, one of which is I'm not sure is allowed, the second is more procedural. So the first question is, are we allowed to know whose card was returned undeliverable? I'm concerned about my other neighbor.
I couldn't quite hear you, ma'am.
And I wanted to know whose card was, I'm concerned about my elderly neighbor on the other side,
Yeah,
Mr. Jellison.
Wayne Skinner.
It wasn't, so Mr. Jellison was informed, okay. I'll talk to him about what's proposed because that will impact sort of what he sees there. My other procedural question is, I share very much the same concerns as my neighbors about the parking, the tremendous amount of parking on a leaching field, which will be higher and is much higher than where our properties go, which fall lower. Where do we raise those concerns? I understand it's out of the buffer zone, so I assume this is not the right place. I'm not understanding when we bring that into the conversation.
Well, obviously, we have to approve a plan like this, and so would the Board of Health if they're putting in a new septic system.
ZBA, either planning board.
Is it okay, Mr. Chairman, if I, yeah?
Yeah,
Mrs.
Sharon,
Freeman, Mrs.
Sharon,
Freeman,
you
sure.
can call me Sharon.
That's okay. This is an appropriate, it is an appropriate forum because, our stormwater is being directed towards two new stormwater management BMPs that we're calling the pervious pavement. And so this entire parking field is going to be directed using, so that retaining wall that we talked about that's on the outside is going to have a little, we call it a parapet or a little step. It serves a couple of functions, make sure the cars don't go over.
Don't visit us.
Right, and it also is going to help us direct the runoff from the parking field here towards the rear of the
I'm
property.
more concerned about the concept of having that high level of parking, that amount of parking, that close to the neighbor, and what are the other options. And I understand it's not here. What I don't know enough about is where do we raise those concerns? 'Cause
Looks
I
like a
want to
ZBA
figure it
issue to
out.
me.
Well, unfortunately, I'm on the ZBA, and we'll have to recuse myself, but it's not a planning board issue, is it?
I
Or-
think it could be. Are you guys going to the planning board?
We will be, it'll be site plan review, absolutely. One of the considerations, for site plan review is, any impacts to the abutters, including the ZBA, which is gonna have to make a section 6 finding, which means that what we're proposing, they'll have to find that what we're proposing isn't going to be any more detrimental to the neighborhood than what's already there.
Can I ask another question about the same thing? How do you get up there? Do you have to go around the back of the building?
This is gonna be two-way along the side of the building here. It's gonna be, it's a 24-foot wide aisle.
So you're gonna have
We're
two-way coming in off the street on East Main?
That's correct, and then that'll be, it's two-way access into the parking field, but there'll be do not enter signs here. This is one-way circulation here. So this is only meant to allow folks to be able to access, and then come back out.
So this is me being worried about pedestrian and traffic safety. This sounds scary. This sounds really dangerous
Yeah, right now
and
it's
scary.
one way in on, supposedly towards you, on your side.
Yeah, it's one way
And
there.
you come out on this side,
It's
my
that
side.
way.
Well, I mean, assume at some point it has to go through public safety review too, so I mean, there is a whole.
Whereas there's no committee for that.
Well,
involved.
the planning board engineer, they do kind of like a traffic
Yeah,
study
okay.
type thing. The planning board can look at traffic and
I
and
hope
safety
you might
concerns.
rethink this. I'm not sure this is. I understand what you're saying about your septic and the sandy soil. I live there too. I get it,
That-
but I'm not sure. You might want to come up with some plan.
I was looking at that for snow storage.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I would
Well,
assume
just go
that,
right into there, yeah.
I would assume that the planning board would hire their third-party civil engineer to take a look at this as well.
I guess I just want to sort of put you.
As it is right now, the snow gets piled up right in the corner on my side, before the driveway.
Yeah, they just,
And they also block the sidewalk when they plow the parking lot, so I have to snowboard.
but they do the best they
Yeah.
can for the situation. We're
But
not-
they're taking away a lot of parking spaces, piling snow
Yeah.
in the front of the building.
I guess we should
On the
just make sure
side.
we go to the ZBA and
Yeah.
and we'll get
In
those
the
green
plan-
cards, right?
in the planning board.
Okay, in the planning board, so just to raise it in the right places, because I don't understand it on. Okay.
Well, we're certainly not gonna close this tonight, so, you know, we have, we have to do our due diligence as well, and go, again, do a site walk and do the further evaluation.
Okay.
Can I ask what happens to the water in the front?
Sure, and
Currently, like when we have heavy rains, like does it flood towards the street, towards the back? What happens?
so there's
Stays in the
an
middle.
existing leach and catch basin, believe it or not, in the middle of the parking area here. And we've been keeping an eye on it for the last several months. Mr. Williams, my business associate, is a resident of town, and I've directed him to keep an eye on that because I'm curious too. Sometimes after a rain event, there is a small puddle, but interestingly enough, not over the structure. The structure takes it all, and it doesn't take very long for it to disappear. It's amazing, and that's strictly a function of the soils that we have on the site. And so, for that reason, we're not proposing any changes in the front of the building.
Okay.
Do you guys want to do a third-party review? I mean, some of the engineering bit is over my head.
Yeah, I think it's, it's something we wanna get right.
Are we sure this is what the plan's gonna be?
Plans always change.
Right.
From a stormwater management standpoint,
It's not gonna change that much, things tweaked, and they're used to that, they can work with that. The resource lines aren't gonna change, if you wanna have the resources, checked, the plan's not gonna change that much, so that we can at least initiate it, just from, authorize me to at least be able to work towards that as a goal, if that's something that you guys may have, and so willing to work with us on.
I think I'd like to see a third party.
I'm just wondering if it's too early in the stage.
Well,
That's all.
They're not gonna, unless they're gonna
Right.
reinvent.
Well, they haven't
the
gone in
wheel.
front of the planning board yet to see if this is approved, correct?
That's right.
If they're willing to work with us on it, they're the ones gonna be paying for the third-party review, and if there's any major changes, they're gonna have to pay again to have it reviewed. They have no incentive to, not work with them, if they're willing to work with us.
We thought, we did go back and forth with this. We have an attorney, on board, Attorney John Smolak, who's working with us, and we tossed this around, where should we apply first? And we talked to Howard and the building inspector, and everyone seemed to think, including our team, that the most impact, or, we'd like to say the most, it's the wetland resources that are impacted the most by these improvements, and so we thought that this would be the most logical first place that we should stop.
Well, I'd just say again is to look into the zero discharge systems. They might, in this instance like this, they might be something to really consider.
Okay, I will definitely do that. I've never designed one, but I'll definitely look into it before the next time we get
Can you
together.
help me understand what that means? Would that be instead of the
I'm not sure,
leaching
actually, to be
field?
honest.
Okay.
They have different types, like incinerating, they're waterless, so everything's dry.
It's really a tight to
Well,
tight.
and
There's-
some
there's
of them
like-
use plants to
there's
take this system.
30
and-
different options for it.
Hey,
It's
let's
a wide
not put me out
range.
of business.
Sorry, tanks only.
So that would be Commercial to use. address the leaching field,
Yeah.
that suggested.
But I also would suggest that you investigate whether you could, relocate those to the front of the lot. Look at that as another option.
Under the parking lot in the front.
Where's the water that is gonna be on the top parking lot there? Where's that gonna run off to?
That's going to be directed to the rear, to the pervious pavement for that treatment, and then during those heavier storm events, it'll bleed out and/or flow over the pervious pavement into this bioswale and be directed to that point there.
As I look at the back, I see, as it was referenced, the green areas are not really grass, and, it kind of looks like the golf course type of thing here. Is there any reason why you can't pull that pervious pavement closer to the building? In other words, pull the whole thing away from the river more?
We can certainly take a look at that to see how that would impact a larger.
I mean, ultimately, is that supposed to be grass?
In the location closest to the building.
Bringing this
Yeah, he said he was.
I think the intent originally was that those areas were supposed to be, vegetated, and they are.
Well, I mean, what all I'm saying is swap that area from vegetation to the back. You're pulling, more of the.
Oh, I see. So you're saying, sort of shift everything
Right.
and shrink,
Just
shrinking the amount of landscaping
leave more on the other
closest to the
side.
building.
I mean, just see if it's possible.
Okay.
You'd have more parking.
Well, we're not.
It wouldn't change the parking, it would just be sliding the whole thing. So you'd lose that wood ramp access to one of those back garage doors, but it would just be sliding things like 5 or 6 feet.
Was further away.
Yep.
It is.
It's creating more of a buffer on the other side, which is never.
The buffer that exists there is obviously pretty
Oh, yeah.
low quality, to
Yep.
put it nicely.
This will be an improvement.
But there might be an opportunity to create more of a enhancement if you did
Mhm.
that, yeah.
I mean, you can only gain 5 or 6 feet. So it's something.
But we're,
But
we're so
shrub-
close to,
shrub
this,
border.
if you, every bit
I agree.
Mhm.
is at least worth looking at. I'm not saying that's the ultimate solution, but it's
The rain garden, maybe for some of the, because I'll be honest with you, the O&M plan says street sweeping once a month.
Nobody does that.
Vacuum sweeping.
I mean, it's great,
It's-
from an industrial standpoint, companies will love to write plans and they love to put them in either in computer files or shelves, and they say, did you do that? No, we didn't do that. We haven't done that in 6 months.
And again, they can say they're gonna do it, and we can nod and say, we know you're gonna do it. But I like to have them over-designed, so maybe if we can gain 5 feet, we can do like, maybe a rain garden, something to capture the water. Hypothetically, if the pervious pavement failed because it clogged, to allow the water going into
Yeah.
a rain garden or some other depression. Given it won't fail, if it did, we have a kind of backup, something to catch it.
That is, that's
That's what
this
the
grass
vacuum
swale
is for.
that's here.
That's
Yeah,
the
but if we
bio-
can beef
the
it
bio-
up a bit,
bio-
a little
Exactly.
more, if we can
Right.
gain 5 feet with Carl's idea, make it a
Right.
little deeper to hold some volume. Right now, you're not designing it, take away the pervious pavement as far as engineering. My point is pretend that was pervious, impervious.
Right.
Where's the water gonna go? Because to be honest with you, in 10 years, that pervious pavement is not gonna be as pervious.
As it was.
The engineering numbers never show that, but it would. So if we can beef up that to handle more water, I think it'd make the commission more comfortable with this concept, because most of us here know it's not gonna get vacuum swept once a month.
It may initially, but I mean, eventually,
Well, we can
especially
also
when it
write-
changes hands, it's very hard to police,
But
it's,
we can always write the conditions. I'll be honest, usually we accept their O&M plans as stated. We can have a condition where they have to send in monthly reports, with more teeth involved, We shouldn't have to police it, but if we put stronger language in with fines, I guarantee you it's gonna get done if the fines outpace the cost of doing the sweeping. Again, part of it's, we're not enforcing it, the applicants aren't doing it, but, we can step up more on our side. If they wanna say they're gonna do it once a month, then we can enforce it, and make sure it gets done.
I also like, just, for the record, I know Mr. Scribanos has been here for a long time, and, he's a very good businessman, and, supports the local economy with this building, and it's not new. He's here for the long haul, and he has he owns the entire building. This is not just the Dunkin' Donuts here, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's intentional that, these
Right.
don't get, I work in industry, things just get missed sometimes, and it's just, there's other priorities, so.
I wasn't referencing this property, I'm referencing every property I've ever dealt with, I'm not
Right,
picking
I
on
mean,
this.
it's,
I'm just
again,
saying in
I'm
reality, it's a
not
plan.
implying that it's intentional, someone's not gonna do it, I'm saying it's these things, having been in this business a while, they just get missed,
And 10 years isn't very long for it to start to not do what it was designed to do either. So if it lasts for 20 years, that's 10 years of it not functioning the way we wanted it to, so.
You can almost guarantee long term it will fail eventually.
Right.
So, I like the idea of beefing up the other side to handle a little more.
So it's worth exploring, in my
Right.
opinion.
Yeah, we can definitely look at that. Just to give you a little bit more background on sort of our methodology, the pervious pavement in and of itself got us to that 8 to 80%. But we knew that, we had an opportunity here to pull back our limit of work a little bit, to shrink sort of this area down to one-way traffic and try to fit something else in here. We were working on a similar project at another, up in North Andover, where we initially had designed a rain garden. But we have high groundwater conditions here, and we've dug down this biofilter. We can't technically call it a rain garden because we can't really get all of those layers and with a straight face say that they're all going to function the way a rain garden would function. So that's why we've labeled it as a biofilter. We've taken it down to elevation 80, which is about the elevation of the floodplain, that 100-year floodplain, which is close to the elevation of the wetland line. So although we haven't done a lot of testing as far as estimated seasonal high groundwater back in the rear of the site, we know that the high groundwater is probably very close to the elevations of the wetland flags. And so that's how we sort of approach the design of the biofilter. But we can see about if we could just, squeeze it some more and see what we can come up with. Yeah, I appreciate that.
I wonder if the types of plants that you choose for that biofilter will have an effect on how effective it is as well, like.
It absolutely will. I can tell you the way we've sort of designed it now is with a series of shrubs, and we've only selected 2 species, and then a wetland seed mix for the lower part. So we can review that with Mary a little bit. We didn't involve Mary with selecting those species, but we could definitely bounce it off of her and see if we can.
Because the herbaceous cover obviously is only growing and active during the growing season. You want to select species that have some physical structure during other times of the year too. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times grasses, just dense grasses are the best because they might not be physically bioattenuating the pollutants during the non-growing season. They physically can slow down flows and trap sediment. Mm-hmm. So.
But if it's that wet, well, I mean, the clethra seemed to me like it would take over from blueberries because it's so stoloniferous.
We tried grouping them together.
Like probably fill in time, but elderberry would be a good one too. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the grasses sound as
or a
that
sedge,
potential for or sedges.
That's
for
what's in
grabbing
the wetland seed
sediment.
mix is mostly rushes and sedges and some wetland grasses.
Yeah, mm-hmm. that could take that wet condition.
All right. Any more comments or questions at this point?
Just looking for a third-party review motion so I can get going on that end, and just kind of talking about roughly when we can continue this to. Given I don't have really a third-party review in hand yet, like a cost estimate and stuff.
We would give you a motion to go investigate.
I guess the point is, I don't know if we're going to have that. We can schedule it for the next meeting, but given I'm having to start the process and I can't send it out, accepting it Monday, it might take a little longer. Where the previous cases I had it in hand and I can initiate it Monday. I don't have that right now for this project, so I might need like a week and a half. We can schedule it for the next meeting, but it might not be ready by then.
I'll entertain a motion for a third party.
We need to make the motion. Make the motion first. Go, Lilibeth. Make the motion.
She just did. You didn't hear it?
No, she seconded it.
No, I'm kidding.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for third-party review at 64 to 74 East Main Street, GCC 2013-15.
Okay. We have a motion that's been seconded to conduct a third-party review for 64 to 74 East Main Street. Is there any further discussion? And that's, Steve is to
Drop a
solicit a bid.
Yeah.
Is, okay, and the time is to be determined, I guess.
As fast as I can get it out and they can get the work done.
Make a motion to continue.
Let me close this
Oh,
one.
sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining?
Someone's ready to go home.
Can I
One second question, yeah, sorry.
Just one quick question. You may not need necessarily the third-party review for the wetland boundary. I mean, it's up to you to decide, but it's pretty straightforward and not very long. So you obviously could make that decision, but you may, when you view the site, think it might not be necessary.
And I have checked the site. I know the site. I've been there for the past year, checking out a few times with the engineer. Sometimes we don't check the third-party wetland delineation when it's just, it is what it is.
Right.
It's 10, 12, 15 feet away, and
It is what it is.
You know, you don't have to accept it, but you can save on the cost. And they can move the road as far to the building as Carl suggested, whether it's 15 feet or 20 feet. I don't know if it matters to you. So that is an option in this case to save some of the paperwork and stuff.
I would appreciate that.
I mean, definitely the engineering, is that, when I mentioned it, I was thinking about the engineering, because that's up in my head. And it's kind of interesting dynamics, because it's existing, but there's
Well,
improvements.
yeah,
but are
it's,
they
it's,
really?
it's, it's engineering, stormwater review, it's more than just purely a wetland
Yeah,
review. You're
but I
looking at it
mean-
more from again, engineering and stormwater.
I mean, the riverfront is 75% of the property already. You know.
But it's,
If it's
it
10
appears
feet
to be a win for the wetlands on that, you know,
So
Mhm.
that's your
compared to what
call.
they have now.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So what are you guys thinking? I mean, definitely the stormwater and the engineering components. Do you still want to see a third party on the wetland delineation also?
Well, if you could have the same person do the
Well,
whole.
the same company, but they're different people. So at least for BSC, it's.
I mean, I'd like to see it in one report as opposed to having all these different folks and.
Well, we don't get one report as it is right now because we're different with different departments, different expertise. So we get a wetland report and we get an engineering report. They're never on the same document. We get from two people, actually two different
But they
locations.
actually talk to each
Can
other.
you do the wetland?
I can get a
Chapter
feel
one,
for it,
chapter
yeah.
two.
I mean, I
Can
can do it.
Steve do the wetland?
Yeah.
I
I'm not,
mean, we
I'm
know
not gonna
it's
do it to the
close.
same extent. I don't go and do the borings every 2 feet like these guys do.
But it's Pembroke, you know, it's.
Go till I fall in.
Well, there are quite a few flags, for example, that, are coincident. I think if you remember during my presentation that the river flag, like the BBW is at the top of the bank.
Those are our two bank, yeah.
I mean, I can go out there and get a feel for it.
I'd be happy to walk it with you,
Yeah.
and we can look at it if you want to make a decision of whether you're comfortable with it or not. I'm just throwing it out there for.
On a sale, it's pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
I'm fine checking it out. I've done it in the past, you guys asked me to do it. Just knowing I'm not,
Fine.
an expert in this, I can get a feel for it. If it's 10 feet off, I'll pick it up. If it's a foot off, I'm not going to. It really is what it is on this site.
Yeah, I'm concerned with this, the stormwater, the flooding, the engineering of just not so much the actual, I mean, I'm obviously concerned with the bank and the riverfront area, but I'm not as concerned with it, determining exactly where the bank is at this point. I think in many cases it's fairly easy to define, but I don't want to have a plan that's detrimental to the site and makes the situation worse. So we've got a motion out there.
I think
What was it?
we already did it. We already motioned on a third party. This was just a suggestion before we continued it. This idea was brought up. So
Yeah, that's what I meant, motion to continue.
you can, if you want to change that to just engineering, then I'll just have the
No, leave it
engineering.
the way it is.
Leave it the way it is with both?
Yeah.
Continue to the next meeting, and if we're not ready, we'll just move it forward. Is that okay with everybody?
Mhm.
Where are we at for times on the 15th?
We're up to-
8:05?
We had a, 8:05 TIDS.
Okay,
I
make a
wouldn't go
motion.
much later than that, to be honest
Right.
with you, because
gonna
odds
be
are there's
long,
not gonna be an
right?
update. So like 8:10.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue 64 to 74 East Main Street to August 15th, 8:10.
Yep.
We have a second. We have a motion of a second to continue the notice of intent for 64 through 74 East Main Street to August 15th at 8:10, and now I'm getting tired too. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All abstaining.
Thank you very much.
Do you mind if I steal that site plan? I actually don't have any anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I gave them away and
Motion
sending
to
them
close
over
the
for
meeting.
reviews.
Second.
Wait.
Ah!
Just sign. This is the order of conditions that you guys approved tonight. One signature spot. I filled it out 10 minutes before the meeting, so it's not 100% filled out.
Steve.
Give me a box of Joe.
Can you sign this empty piece of paper?
No, it was left unintentionally. because I did it 5 minutes before the meeting.
What, are you gonna write that in?
Yeah. We do it all the time. Thanks for coming.
That makes it right.
No, thank you. It does, that makes it fine.
I know it's late, so thank you.
You got a blank check, you could sign for me?
It's a race around here, it's just, here's this fill-in, I get a 15% raise.
Oh, the cookies.
See, they approved it.
It was easy.
Crazy. I just need the site plan. I don't have any more site plans.
Oh, okay. Oh, let me check.
Is this your site? I think I scribbled all over yours.
Yeah, that's
I'm
how
sorry.
that's how I lost it.
I'm sorry, you have it. And you have all my lovely notes.
I'm getting a new one.
Oh.
So after you sign that, we're all set.
Motion
So the-
closed.
I keep it
All
to-
these side meetings, do they come out in the minutes that we get
Second.
emails?
Again,
3 seconds.
better than 30.
We have a motion to close, and it's been seconded, all in favor?
Aye. Nothing else, Steve?
No, it's 5 till tomorrow.